Thursday, March 20th, 2025. Sorry, we good? Oh, thank you. Thursday, March 20th, 2025. Can we call the attendance, please?
Yes. Kelleher.
Here.
Miss Leon.
Here.
Miss Lindstrom.
Here.
Miss Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Rockenstar.
Here.
Ms. Tarpinian.
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff.
Here.
Miss Ledger.
She is excused sick.
And Ms. Roskina.
She will just be 5 minutes late. Thank you. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, agenda item 4.0 is the approval of the February 27th, 2025 workshop and business meeting minutes. With no objections, we can approve those. All right. Agenda item 5.0 are adjustments to the agenda. We do, policy does have one adjustment request. So I'll turn it over to Freyla and then.
We were scheduled to vote on a suite of 5 Title IX policies this evening. I know you have missed them since it's been a month since we've gotten through that process. But we are going to postpone that. There is some discrepancy in the records from the last time that they were voted on in 2022. And so we need to bring them back to the committee to advance new policies out of that committee, which will be in line with the policies that are in existence in 2022. And this is in conformance with the change in federal law that went through, which rescinded the Title IX requirements that were imposed this summer that we worked on. And so it reverts us back to the prior Title IX policies that were mostly drafted in 2020, but there was an important amendment that's applicable to us from 2022. So stay tuned for all of that again.
All right, so do I have a motion to remove the 10.3 Title IX policies that would include 10.3.1, 10.3.2, 10.3.3, 10.3.4, and 10.3.5 from the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Can you call the vote, please?
Kelleher.
Yes.
Miss Leon.
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Rockenstar.
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian.
Yes.
Mr. Peony Huff.
Yes.
And
Ms. Roskina.
Yes.
thank you. All right, so the middle school coach appointment will be the new 10.3. Thank you. All right, agenda item 6.0 is a Spotlight Award recognition. 6.1 is the staff Spotlight Award recognition. So we'll turn this over to Jillian.
All right. So this month's Spotlight Award winner is John Chardlow. I think he's here. All right, and the person that nominated him is in the room also, I believe, Matt Townsend. All right, so this was a really fun Spotlight Award. I was invited in to get some video and some quotes from the staff. They were finishing up a meeting and I got to hear how they were interacting, and you can just tell this is a group that really enjoys and celebrates each other. It was very impressive. But some of the nice things that were said about Mr. Chardlow was he's very welcoming, as he's the first person to say hello when somebody walks in the room, and he's great with the kids. That he is the first person to step up, to show people the ropes, and is there for everybody that needs support. And that he puts kids first all the time. And it is clear that he cares about his work. He's amazing to work with and cares deeply about that. So there's a video on the next slide of some of the staff quotes. That's fun.
Having John as part of our team is quite amazing. His ability to relate to both the adults and the kids in our social life skills program is just amazing. The things he does behind the scenes, he'll buy things, take money out of his own pocket and buy things for students. He'll take them to art club when they don't have transportation. He'll set it up. Just amazing part of our team, and so happy that he's being recognized publicly for all of his hard work.
He always takes the time to help anybody. He's available at all times.
Awesome. Thank you so
He
much.
doesn't judge.
Right. So I've known John for over 15 years. I've been working in this field with him, and I'm always impressed with his endurance for the work we do. The work we do is incredibly hard. He comes back year after year with the enthusiasm of somebody who's just getting started in this field and really wants to make a difference. It's phenomenal and impressive.
I appreciate John's clinical experience as well as his ability to be a friendly face. I think that he brings a lot to the table in terms of helping other staff and helping kids move through hurdles and emotionally regulate. He's a huge part of why this team works.
Awesome.
I really appreciate working with John. He not only makes like us as staff feel super welcome, but he also makes the students feel super welcome. And he's always that like patient missing piece that gets the kids to come back day after day. And he definitely deserves this award.
John, can you join us up front?
Want to have him hold it?
Sure. First of all, thank you all for having me this evening. This, in my opinion, is, well, in part a lifetime achievement award. But more importantly, I think here it's representative of the amazing work our social services do here, our special services, our OTs, our PTs, our clinicians, all the people who do work behind the scenes. I'm representing the high school. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. So I appreciate the recognition, but this would not happen if it weren't for the collective effort of everybody up here. So on behalf of the SLS program, the high school, special services, I gladly accept.
Congratulations. Thank you for all you do.
Well, that was really awesome. I think that's the first time we've had a whole team come like that. That was very
Yeah.
cool. Congratulations. All right, our 6.2, agenda item 6.2 is our Student Spotlight Award recognition.
Having John as part of our team is
We're very excited about it. Yes, we wanted to hear it again. So this is only our second time with our Student Spotlight Award. So for this, I will turn it over to Abby, our student rep. Has worked very hard on this with Grace.
Okay, so our next Student Spotlight Awards, if you want to, are, could you change the slide, please? It's Matthew and Kaylee. They were nominated by Miss Vanessa and Miss Shoop. And for Kaylee, we have a little video that's on the next slide. Kaylee, do you want to get your award?
Kaylee, did you want to say anything? You don't have to. It's not a requirement. Just want to offer. Yep. Do you want to come up to the microphone? So people, we have one board member online. Thank you.
I don't have COVID, pneumonia, flu, or strep. I just have a cough. So I'm gonna take off my mask for a second. I just wanted to say that I remember distinctly meeting Kaylee for the first time. She was a freshman and she came into the cafeteria, and I remember seeing her and going, "Oh, she's gonna be important." Because Kaylee is very selfless, understated, very warm and welcoming. She really encapsulates the quote that is falsely attributed to Walt Whitman: "Be curious, not judgmental," popularized by Ted Lasso, for anyone who's watched that show. And I think she's one of those people who quietly but firmly holds up the center, and doesn't always, get all of the glory and the, accolades, et cetera, but is 100% just the backbone of our student body. And I'm very proud to have gotten to work with her, and she has taught me so much about activism, and I'm very proud of her.
Our other student spotlight award was Matthew Fagerlin. Matthew, do you want to get your award now?
Right. Congratulations to both of you. Matthew, did you want to say anything? Did you want to come up and say anything? Don't blame you one bit. Congratulations to both of you. All right, our agenda item 7.0 is the high school winter sports recognition. So for this, we'll invite Mike Legage. I think I saw him.
He's here.
There he is. Invite him up to kick us off.
Well, thanks for having us, and just not to waste any time, we'll get right started. So with Chair Coach Laveria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Laverrier, the head coach for cheerleading. I'm joined by our assistant coach, Katie Reed, and our junior athletes, Lorelai and Aoife. We appreciate your support for our schools and thank the athletics department for their dedication, which is so vital to our program's success. This season has been a very incredible one for our team. We proudly secured first place at 3 invitational events this season, and we're runners up at the Class A South SMAAs. We also achieved our first place at Class A South Regionals for the first time ever in Scarborough history, and finished 4th overall at state level, which qualified us for New England's, and that is what we will be taking on this weekend. So we're very excited about that. I'm going to let our juniors speak because they have something they wrote that they would like to share.
We are grateful to be here today with immense gratitude for the cheerleading program available at our school. This program has been more than just an extracurricular activity. It has been a family, a source of strength, and a platform for growth. Through cheerleading, we have learned the importance of teamwork, dedication, and perseverance. The support from our coaches, our teammates, and the unwavering encouragement from our school community has made this journey truly remarkable.
Reflecting on our season, we are overwhelmed with pride and joy. We faced challenges head on, practiced tirelessly, and performed with passion and precision. Every practice and each competition brought our team closer together and pushed us to reach new heights. Our hard work paid off, and our achievements this season are a testament to our commitment and spirit. And I just want to say thank you again for having us tonight.
Thank you. I have arrived. How I want to be greeted every morning in my office. Coach Conley with boys basketball.
So good evening. I want to introduce two sophomores to you, Oscar Goss and Ben Farris. Two outstanding players for me in my program. I've also had the privilege of teaching them in class and health and phys ed class, and they're two outstanding students as well. I want to start first by thanking our athletic director, Mr. Legage, for outstanding support to our coaches and our student athletes. This is my 29th year coaching high school basketball, and I'll tell you right now, there's no one better. His organization, his communication, and expectations for both coaches and then the student athletes make my job so much easier as the head coach. So thank you, Mr. Legage. Our season was a huge success. So at the beginning, I didn't know, how we would be. We lost 8 seniors last year and a regional runner-up. But it was a very, very good season. We finished in 3rd place in the South AA, a tough conference. We made it to the Final Four, playing at the Cross Insurance Center, which is always a highlight for our guys. We had 2 players make first team all-conference, Carter Blanche and Adam Fitzgerald, which is a great honor. But what I'm most proud of was the culture in our program. My guys started this process building our culture this past summer. We work out 3 mornings a week for 2 hours each morning. We play then in games on Monday and Wednesday evenings. And then we attended the Gold Rush team camp at Thomas College, where we stayed 2 nights. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, team meetings, and we played many games. So that was the start of our culture. We always start that in the summertime with every new team. We set our team standards at the beginning of the year, where everyone has input on how we want our season to go. So I ask all the guys to bring in 2 team standards they want us to follow. It's about an hour and a half session in our classroom before our first practice. So we talk about them and then we vote on 5 standards that we want to follow. This really helped in our team culture. Also, after each practice, and these guys, they'll nod when I say this, we talk about giving gratitude to everyone after practice. So after I meet with the guys, we talk about what we did well in practice, what we need to work on the next day to get ready for our next opponent. Each and every one of these guys give gratitude to their teammates. They all have to, we have 19 guys that practice with us. They go to every single person on our team and give gratitude. That can be, hey, thank you for pushing me hard in practice today. Thank you for playing hard defensively, red team versus black team. So this really connected everyone. Everyone felt as a part, whether they were a starter, a guy that came off the bench, or a guy that just practiced with us and played in the JV games. So we give gratitude, which I think definitely helps with our culture. And I also want to give gratitude to the school board, to our assistant superintendent and our superintendent for supporting the student athletes here at Scarborough. We appreciate everything that you do for your support. So thank you very much.
Coach Manning with girls basketball.
to fill in. Good evening, everyone. Just want to introduce three of my senior captains. This is Ellie Rummelhart, Meg Rummelhart, and Emerson Flaker. So I am the JV girls basketball coach. I am speaking on behalf of the girls varsity basketball coach, Mike Giordano. He apologizes for not being here in attendance tonight. He is fortunate enough to be able to spend some off-season time in sunny Florida. And that's where he's at the moment. Our girls' basketball season was one of many ups and downs. Our season record was 9 wins and 11 losses. One of the greatest lessons we learned through high school athletics is how to deal with adversity, something that is difficult to learn in the classroom, but available day to day in athletics through competition. One of our highlights for the season was the game we played at Chevrolet. Our Red Storm stunned the Lady Stags 47-44, stopping their 5-year home win streak. A last-second shot three-pointer by Meg Rummelhart will be a shot this season that none of us will soon forget. We entered the Southern Maine AA tournament as the number 5 seed and went on the road to upset number 4 seed Thornton Academy by a score of 52-44. That allowed us to advance to the regional finals for the 8th straight year and play at the Cross Insurance Arena. Unfortunately, we met up against the eventual AA state champs, South Portland. We did place 2 players on the AA South All-Star team. Eva Alvarez, a sophomore, made the all-rookie team, and Emerson Flaker was selected as the AA Defensive Player of the Year. Emerson also selected to play in the McDonald's Senior All-Star Game in Bangor that was played on March 9th. 3 of our 4 seniors also made senior all-academic team, and we are all very proud of our team GPA, which is an impressive 93.95. We graduate 4 players and 1 manager this year, and we wish them nothing but the best in their future endeavors. We will miss seeing all you ladies in Scarborough Gym. Thank you for having us.
Coach McCormick, Unified Basketball.
Hi, I'm Albert McCormick, head coach. This is Trey Spillman, one of our senior partners, huge part of our unified team. Real quick, I'm going to give the mic over to him, but I want to talk. We had an amazing season. We had a 25-kid team, might be the biggest team ever in the nation. I don't know. It's a big team. But we had a wonderful season. One of my favorite memories, though, is actually a loss that we had. We played a very competitive Westbrook team, and we lost by 28 points. I think the spread was 30, so we're okay there. But got back on the bus, and it was we have these speakers, kids listening to music. We just had an absolute blast on the way home from a game by just getting blown out, and the team just had such a good time. No matter what, whether we win or lose, I love that teams like to play us. We like to play other teams. And a big part of that is our team culture and Trey here. So I'll give the mic over to Trey just to talk about Unified real quick.
I think we had one of the best seasons during Unified this year. I think that we got amazing helpers with the freshmen and sophomores. I want to thank Coach McCormick for coaching us and just teaching the new athletes that have come up since the middle school, because some of them didn't do Unified before that. And I think we're going to get them back next year. I hope so. And the best is yet to come for Unified. And, this was probably the best season ever I've been a part of, but more is to come. And Unified is going to be better all across the nation and across Maine State.
And wrestling, Coach Watson.
Hi, good evening. I'm Coach Benny Watson. I coach the Scarborough Gorham Cooperative Wrestling Team. And I'm joined by no one this evening. Unfortunately, all of our senior captains had prior engagements. Overall this season, in terms of wins and losses, we didn't really set the world on fire. To look at our dual meet win-loss record, we were 0-15 in countable contests. But we were a very young team. We're graduating 3 seniors. Everyone else should be returning. The program is continuing to build, and that was evident by the behavior and demonstrated by the kids. I'm a firm believer that the success of a varsity program is strongly built at the youth level. Excuse me. A lot of our athletes volunteered their time this year to work with the Wolfpack Youth Group, officiating tournaments, working tables, and just being the big kids that the little kids want to be like. We're expecting between Gorham and Scarborough next year almost 12 incoming freshmen who all have a background in wrestling. I could talk forever about why I think wrestling is the best sport in the world, but Mike told me I have to keep it to 3 minutes or less. But for me, it's about the discipline that it takes. And I would never take anything away from any other athlete in terms of what it requires to be good at your craft. But to me, wrestling requires the most discipline, the most mental fortitude, and it's the only sport in high school where you can be ineligible to compete if you don't make weight. So you're constantly battling things in and outside of the practice room just to be able to participate. And there's no bad pass. There's no missed block. There's no somebody didn't do something else. It's you against someone else in the middle of the gym, honest and exposed. And you either win or you learn is kind of our mantra. And that's why I firmly believe that the lessons we take away from wrestling give us a mindset that will take us further in life long after our last match under the light. So notable achievements for the season, though. We qualified a senior for the state tournament, which makes 4 consecutive seasons every year post-COVID when we could compete. We've qualified a wrestler for the Open Division State Tournament. Lola Vance, who was a sophomore at Gorham High School, was the first female to place at a state tournament / New England qualifier in program history of Scarborough or Gorham. And she was also the first female to ever earn all conference honors in our program's history. She's also been invited to be a part of the Maine national freestyle team this offseason, which travels the country wrestling freestyle all over the United States. So that was a pretty big honor for us. We're still continuing to make history. And so I would extend my thanks to Mr. Legage and to you guys. You may or may not know, but the year that I took over the program was the first competitive season after COVID, and it was the first season after it had been proposed to be cut from the town budget. We're looking at having the biggest roster we've ever had next year, tons of experience in the room, and in my completely biased opinion, the best decision you ever made was to keep it. Thank you.
Coach Worsing, boys hockey.
Good evening. I'm Eric Worsing, head coach of the Scarborough hockey program and have been the head coach for the past 4 years. I would like to thank the school board as well as Mr. Legage for continuing to allow me to have the opportunity to coach these young men. I am joined by 2 senior captains, Wyatt Grondin and assistant captain Quinn Staples. Wyatt is a recipient of a 4-year varsity letter award. It's the first time I've ever handed out that award in my career here. Also, he received all academic team recognition, and he plans on attending Sacred Heart in the fall. Quinn Staples was our Hobie Baker Award winner, which is distinguished for exemplary character, and he will be attending the University of Tampa in the upcoming fall. This season, we finished 9-9. Our motto was, doesn't matter, get better. Last year, we won only 2 games, and our goal this year was to improve, and we did dramatically. And a majority of that was because of the leadership of these captains. They changed the culture in the locker room, they changed the culture on the ice, and we made a huge improvement. 2 of our wins were in games where we won with less than 3 seconds in regulation, and then we also won an OT with less than a half a second. We were very competitive. We took the soon-to-be state champs to a 4-3 game early in the season, and we also we beat 3 of the top 4 finishing teams in our league. We lost in the first round of the preliminary games against St. Thomas, but we gave them one heck of a fight. And we also had CJ LaBelle, who is a junior defenseman. He received all-state recognition as a defenseman. Also, senior Ryan Duess was also recognized for all academics. I'm just very grateful to coach these young men and be a part of the Scarborough Athletic Department. And I look forward to what we have coming in the upcoming years, just simply because of the work that these gentlemen have done their past 4 years and setting the bar of what it means to be a Scarborough hockey player. Thank you.
And Coach Swinberg with boys and girls swimming.
Hi, I am Morgan Swinburne, coach of both the boys and girls swim team. My captains weren't able to make it tonight. One is in Florida. One's hanging out at home. So we we had a great season again. 26 swimmers. Still working on building that team and numbers back up. I'm also the coach of the middle school, and I actually have 28 swimmers on the middle school so this year. So that looking forward to that. Hopefully we're building the team back up numbers wise. For the teams this year, my boys won 7, lost 2. They took 3rd at Southwesterns and then took 3rd at States, which is really impressive with the amount of teams. And the other teams also get points for divers, which we don't have. So we're able to get up there and compete, and they do really well. My girls won 4, lost 5. Southwesterns, they placed 6th, and then States, they placed 11th. Out of 21 teams with only 3 swimmers qualified and swimming. So they did amazing. And they always step up for that. This year we have, our practices are very late at night. So these kids are very dedicated. Some of them are club swimmers also. So they will swim their club practice, then come straight and swim with us. We get home at 10:30 at night, but these kids still do it all, and they keep their grades up, and they do really well. Really proud of this team and the accomplishments that they do. And I'm looking forward to another season next year. Thank you.
I'm very pleased to bring up next, and I'll just take a quick minute to say that we were able to get restarted our alpine ski program this year. And we had quite a few students participate in that this year in what we call a cooperative individual agreement with Gorham High School. And so really proud to bring up Coach Burns and talk about alpine skiing this season.
Hello, thank you for having me. Also very excited to have the opportunity to coach this team this year. This is Lila Ferry, one of our captains. So yes, we're collaborative with Gorham. So I coach alongside Sean Munkachi, who's also a Scarborough teacher actually. Yeah, so we score separately, but train and share coaching. As for how the season went, it went really well. We placed 3rd overall for both conference and states. And then we sent 4 skiers to the shootout competition, which is the top 10 racers from every conference in the state of the 4 conferences that there are. From there, 10 athletes get to qualify for competing at the Eastern high school alpine championship, which is states across the eastern United States, and only 10 from Maine get to go, and we sent one skier to that race as well. At states, we had 4 in the top 35 out of about 100 skiers, and then we also had 3 receive an all-conference award from SMAAs. This is really impressive, but what's more impressive is the dedication to the sport. Similarly, we're late nights. We're up at Pleasant Mountain 3 nights a week. We leave around 3. We get home around 9 p.m. All of the hours we were just talking about that go into just about 2 minutes, like per race. Seconds, tenths of seconds, hundredths of seconds matter. What's really cool about alpine ski racing is the opportunity to learn from your teammates in a way that's really interesting. Lila would like run a drill and try and like formulate this ability in her teammates to nail down a certain technique. Being a student of the sport really pays off, where like you learn how the ski works, you learn certain technique, and then transfer that to speed and how to go faster in a course. It's a very intimidating sport. And so it's really cool to see, even though it's an individual sport, that team element supporting each other. I want to thank also the opportunity that we've had. I don't think there's been a Scarborough coach in the last few years, so relying on Gorham for that. So it's exciting that I was able to help out. We're 16 students total with Gorham, but 9 of them are Scarborough, and we have no seniors, so everyone will be coming back. And there's a lot of interest from the middle school level, and siblings coming up of teammates and of athletes now. So yeah, I think that ski racing is an amazing sport. It provides a lot of life lessons. It's really up and down. One race going bad feels like the world because of how much time goes into such a quick thing. So yeah, I appreciate the support and also the opportunity to tell you guys about it. Thank you.
Coach Curry with girls indoor track.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. I have 4 of my 5 captains, so I did pretty good. I have Caroline Benson, who did pole vault, hurdles, long jump for us. She's a senior, hasn't decided on school yet, Coast Guard Academy or Naval Academy, I think. Oh, Air Force, yes, okay. So one of those. Gabby Pelletier did hurdles, long jump for us, and once in a while, 400. And Amelia Caruso was our top sprinter this year, qualifying for states for the first time in all her 4 years running track. So that was pretty exciting for her. And she is going to continue her track career at UMass Boston this year. So next year or the fall, this year it will be. Maya Marquis was our shot putter, scoring at states for us. So there's 17 events in track, so it's a little, it's tough getting everybody in every event to place. But they were all on the all academic team, all my seniors this year. They were great leaders to the underclassmen, as student athletes building the team to work towards their goals, which was hopefully to beat our rival Bangor. But they came up a little short, 4 points, but they worked really hard for it. They did have a great season, 13 wins, 1 loss. They came in 3rd at the conference meet. Again, they were lost to Bangor, earning runner-up. From there, we had 10 girls go to New England, which was big. That was the first time that's happened in a while, 2 relays and 2 individuals. So they ended the season on a great note. And I want to thank the athletic department for giving us the tools to run the track program, because it's a lot of work. Going to USM, we got a lot of USM practice this year, which was really helpful for the team than running around the hallways at the school. So thank you.
And Coach Vayu with boys indoor track and field.
Good evening. Thank you for having us, and congratulations to all the student athletes and teams this year on a great winter. I have 3 of my seniors. I had 15 this year, so a lot of leadership. But we have Vincent Caruso, Ethan Keller, and Sam Asia. Last year, we learned a lot. It was the first year we didn't win the state championship in 7 years. So we came in with a little motivation this year, and with 15 seniors, they kind of led the way. We had a great mindset to start the year. We met in the weight room, and I asked them what their goals was, and someone raised their hand, win the state championship, which I expected, but I wanted to find out where their mindset was at. And so once we knew that, we just kind of planned the season. It's a long year. You got to be able to run your best in February. So we start in November. So just take a slow approach, and it wasn't necessary about winning the regular season meets. We were 14-3 in the regular season. But we qualified the people we needed to for the states. And so that's what it really is. You got to qualify people in different events to be able to compete in the state meet. And then we had one of our best meets at the Southwesterns. We came up 3.5 points short to South Portland, but it was a great effort. And I think it really proved to the team that we had what it takes to be one of the best teams at the state meet. And that was kind of the launching pad there, where we had some great performances there, and that kind of focus and mindset carried over to the state meet. And obviously you hope you get off to a good start. We did well in the first event, but then we slipped up a little bit in 2 of the events we were supposed to score, and we didn't. But then, like I said, we had 15 seniors, and one of our seniors was like the 5th seed, and he ended up getting 2nd, and that kind of just catapulted us from there. And then we had I think it was a 22-point lead with 1 event to go, and we didn't have anybody in the event, and the other team had like 3, so we had to sit around and wait. But in the end, we won by 4, so it was, winning a state championship is always the goal at the end of the year, and we were able to do that this year. But we learned a lot from the year before that we were able to change this year, and I think those lessons the seniors took from a year ago, they were able to apply them this year and have a lot of success. We did have 1 school record this year, and that was set last weekend at the national meet in the 4x8. Ethan was part of that team. It was Atticus, Merriam, Baxter, and Landon Springer as well. So it's always nice to get on our school record boards. It's very tough. Some colleges' records are not even close to what we have. A lot of all conference team members, and also all academic. Sam and Vinny were 2 of those. So we also had Baxter, Merriam, Will Patterson, and Landon Springer. And Ethan was also the individual state champion in the mile. And we also had the pole vault state champion in Wyatt Martin. And I already said the relay team made nationals. Wyatt did as well. And Wyatt jumped 15.5 there, the 6th best jump in state history. So we had a lot of success this year, 48 total athletes. So looking forward to what happens next year. We got a lot of young kids, and we will appreciate the 15 seniors we had and all they accomplished. Thank you.
And I'll just finish up by mentioning our girls ice hockey team. We have what's called a combination combined team with Falmouth. Falmouth is the home school for that program. Their coach is Rob Carrier. They had a season record of 5-13. They had 22 players on the team, 9 of which were Scarborough athletes, and they did lose to Biddeford in the MPA quarterfinal game. So they went through the prelim games, made it to the quarterfinal round for this season. So they had an outstanding season as well, the girls ice hockey program. Thank you very much for having us tonight.
Okay, is there any comments? Oh, I feel bad. I feel like this night always happens on the night of budget, and it must feel so good, Kate, for a moment. You're like, they're here for me. Yes. Thank you so much, Mike, for bringing everyone together for us again this year. All right, agenda item 8.0 is presentations. 8.1 is Eight Corners School presentation. So for this, we'll invite Miss Ann Lovejoy to the podium.
All right, well, thank you for having me. It was such a thrill to see all the former Eight Corners students, whether it was Haley Q and Miss Abby here, so many Eight Corners alumni. Not in my time, but yes.
Pardon us, Ann, we can't leave John out. Yes.
I know. And yesterday morning, when we all met as a board with some town councilors and all the leadership, I looked around the room and just counted at least 13 children from people that were in the room right at the moment who have been through Eight Corners recently. So I look back here and there's a lot of parents of Eight Corners families, and it's just a real honor to be here. So I'm gonna try not to get emotional because I've never done this before and it's first and last time. All right, so you can start the slide deck, please, Mr. Grogan. So Mrs. Lindstrom, I know you like data. So I've got some data for you. So Eight Corners School, as of today, we have 246 students with 14 homerooms. Back in 2002, when I took over as principal, we had art, music, PE, health, and library. And in 2025, we still have art, music, PE, health, and library. We would love to add world languages. We would love to add STEM. We would love to add some other things, but that, of course, has not been possible due to a lot of reasons, but it's still in our plan, still in our list of things to do. We're very, very fortunate to have also a student support team that includes special education, social workers, OTs, PTs, speech people. Our student support team is a growing, vibrant, thriving team that is looking at the whole student and not just isolated academics or content areas. We have a total of 58 staff members. Now, on every slide or almost every slide, one thing we do as a staff, and you'll see it if you come into our office, is we like to keep track of all the fun things that kids say, because at the end of the year, you always say, I wish I'd written them down. I could write a book. We write them down. We keep them on the board. They're anonymous, but they're fun and they keep our spirits up. And you can't make this stuff up. So the first one's just really sweet because the little girl says, when I grow up, I want to work at Eight Corners. You can change the slide. And these are all quotes by students, not me. You can change this slide. You can click one more time too, because there's 2 more pictures. Okay, great, thanks. So teaching and learning obviously is our first district goal here. And so teaching and learning at elementary level is very different than it used to be. There's a lot more hands-on, a lot more playing, a lot more doing and trying to do problem solving and critical thinking with each other and not just worksheets and listening to your teacher. There's so much time that is spent interacting with students, with each other, and not just listening to the teacher. Parents often say, like, we're going on a trip. Can we have some work to take with us? Well, we could give it to you, but the work can't be replicated in a single family trip. There's so much rich conversation. There's so much opportunity in the group dynamic. There's so little that you can't do on a plane. You can keep track of things. Yes, you can read books, you can keep a journal, you can do a lot of other great things, but you can't replicate what's happening in the classroom. We strive to be a very safe and inclusive place, obviously. For many, many years, we have done 3 Bs. And if anybody has heard kids talk about B tickets or be the 3 Bs, this is what it means. The little B ticket up at the top, students earn those by being expected, and being expected means that we're being safe, we're being kind, and we're being focused. Back when Abby was there, it was safe, kind, and responsible. So it's changed a little bit, but it's still the same message. But Mind Up, incorporating our Mind Up curriculum has changed our language a little bit, and it's actually probably a little bit more student-friendly than responsible and respectful, right? To be kind and focused, a little bit easier to know. So as kids earn the B tickets every day, they come down and vote at the front office, and the 3 little boxes there, there's the choices to vote for a school-wide reward is monthly, and they change by the month. And this month just happens to be Creative Hair and Neon Day and Mustache Day. And it's always fun to listen to the kids debate over which one they're going to choose. It can be anything from Stuffy Day, Costume Day, music at recess time. I mean, they think dance party, playing music over the loudspeakers at recess is just awesome. And it's so easy and cheap and free. So it's so easy to please them. It's really great. But every month we change them, and we always try to give parents plenty of notice so there's nothing that they need to buy or nothing they need to do. Just show up and have fun. And if we do anything where kids need to have something, we always provide extras so that no one's left out. So being inclusive is really important. And, you know, it's not a penalty because no one's crying. So my music teacher, Catherine Newell, a shout out to her. She wrote a school song and teaches it to all the kids about being safe and being kind and being focused. There's hand motions. And I tried to get a video clip to put in here for you, but we just could not make that work and didn't want to slow things down. But every month at our community meeting, the whole school stands up and sings it. And even the classroom teachers are pretty impressed with how well the kids know it, and they hear them singing it at recess or in their classroom. And they haven't necessarily learned it themselves because it's all done in the music class, but it's very sweet, and I hope it sticks with them for a long time. Another thing we try to do at Eight Corners and in Scarborough schools, obviously, is being community-minded. So the first grade team chose to do a food drive for the Westbrook Animal Shelter, or Animal Refuge League of Westbrook. And so the Animal Refuge League came and presented to first graders and told them what they needed and what their company did, their nonprofit did, and what they would need. And so kids made posters and sent newsletters out to their parents and tried to encourage people to bring in food and toys and things for for dogs and cats and other things. And so we had a big food drive right around Thanksgiving, and it was all driven by the first grade class. And kitty litter does ruin everything. The second graders, they also work in the community, and they take some great field trips to the public safety building where they get to see, or hopefully get to see, all the fire engines and ambulances and things like that. This year, one class went on the Monday after vacation, and we're told this is the worst day to come to the public safety office because they're all busy on this day. Monday after our Christmas holiday is the worst day for ambulances and public safety. So they were all out doing runs, but we did get to see dogs and we did get to see some other things. So the dispatch, so it was still a great trip, but it was just funny. Like, who knew that would be a bad day to go? The second graders also got to take a fun trip to the Cumberland Fair and see lots of animals. Many of them had never seen animals, farm animals like this, cows, horses, bunnies, all kinds of things, especially some of our families who weren't born and raised here. It was really a lot of fun to have them see things that they had never seen before. Yeah, the second graders do JA in a day. So yeah, after that, they decided that going to the bank was a much easier way to get money than working. These are kindergarten groups, and they do the life cycle of the butterfly, and there's a class letting butterflies go. In the fall, we did Character Day as one of our school-wide 3B presentations, presents, gifts, earnings, whatever you call it, rewards. And so kids got to dress up as their characters. Okay, we did kind of fix it so that it was right before Halloween. We didn't call it Halloween. They could dress up in anything, but yeah, it went along, so everybody was happy. And then up at the top is a lesson by our instructional coach talking about Chromebooks and the proper care of Chromebooks. And even, it's probably hard to see in this picture, but even on the board there, it says how to be safe, kind, and focused with your Chromebook, and what are the rules around using your Chromebook and to be safe and to be focused with it and to not mistreat it. And these are just a couple more quotes that we thought were really funny from kindergartners. And yeah, we'll work on that geography lesson about Boston being the biggest town in Maine. A few more numbers for you, Mrs. Lindstrom. According to niche.com, Eight Corners is the 16th most diverse elementary school in Cumberland County. That is behind most of the Portland schools, although not all of them, a couple of South Portland schools and a couple of Westbrook schools. But we do have about a 30% minority population, and it's awesome for kids to see people from all over the world and from everywhere. And it's just such a gift to be able to have them in our school. We had 1,311 visits to the nurse as of today. That's 51 lost teeth, 8 nosebleeds, and countless other bodily fluids that we won't need to discuss. Our lunchroom, our single fabulous lunch lady, Chef Teresa, who is actually retiring at the end of the month, serves between 170 and 180 lunches every day, all by herself. It's incredible. When you add up all the experience in our school staff, there's over 500 cumulative years of experience at Eight Corners. That doesn't include where people taught other places. That includes the person who started on Monday in our school, and that includes the person who's been there the longest, Mrs. Allen, who's been there for over 35 years. 38 of our 98 kindergartners have gotten early intervention services just in the second trimester. So our early intervention teacher is the newer position that's focusing just on acclimating kids to kindergarten, helping them be ready to learn. And so 38 is a huge number. They're finally getting into academics more than just how to be with a group of people, because they're large groups. And so that's awesome that we're finally getting into academics and things like that where they're needed. We're the only school with Title I, and I saw Katie, I think that's correct, right? I said only. It's terrifying to think if Title I is cut, that we will lose our early intervention program. We desperately need that to be a locally funded position so that it's not in jeopardy. Hint, hint. But you know, I understand why it is the way it is, but just in the future, hoping that that Title I money can really be supplemental and not supplanting for that position. So that's just my own little 2 cents on that. We did have a 300% increase in male staff members. Yeah, we went from 2 to 6. They're going to want their own bathroom one of these days, but there's only one to be had for adults, so they can't have it. We have 23 ed techs, both special ed and regular ed. We have 1 foster grandparent who's here every day in a kindergarten classroom. We have 1 vacancy currently, and that's not even in special ed, Mr. Rohde. So good job. Thumbs up for you. 19 students are supported by our multi-language program. We have 196 staff absences in January due to norovirus, flu A, B, strep, COVID, you name it, and yet we still made the school run and never had to close in spite of our almost 30% absentee rate at some point between kids and staff. We have 0 secure vestibules, we have 35 parent parking places, and 58 regularly scheduled pickups. So the parking lot is tight. So the last slide there, just some more reasons why we come to work every day. And we thank you for all your support and all that Scarborough town and community and the board and parents give to us every day. We're very honored to be here, very honored to work with your kids and watch them grow. So thank you. Did that without crying.
Nice job.
Are there any questions or comments for Anne? Is Jenna talking? I don't know. Is Jenna talking? Jenna, are you talking or is that? That's us talking. Okay. Never mind. Well, I will just say, Anne, thank you so much for the data. Yes, you know, you were speaking right to me. So I love that so much. Thank you. And yes, this is your first and your last time, but we're so grateful that you were able to do this for us. So thank you. You are going to be greatly missed. This is not, we'll do it more later, but thank you for joining us for this time. That's right. All right, agenda item 8.2 is FY26 school budget presentation. So for this, we'll invite Kate Bolton, the Director of Business and Finance, up.
Hello, everyone. It's been such a long time since I've spent time with you. There are a lot of slides in this section, but I promise I'm going to go really quickly, and Ray can just keep shoving them along. But we do think it was important for folks to be able to have a chance in this venue to hear a little bit about the budget proposal before the first reading vote tonight. Our board has spent close to 8 hours this week already talking about these things and listening to our full leadership team present. So some of this is going to sound like the same old news to them, but it's really important for everybody to be able to have access to this information. So this evening, what we're doing is the board's first reading of the FY26 next school year's budget proposal. The Leadership Council, which is the principals and department heads, the leaders of the school department, have put together this proposal and presented it to the board. And now it's the time for the board to take that proposal and bring it forward through the budget process where it's adopted through a multi-month, multi-meeting process all the way into May. We will have a presentation of the combined town and school budget on March 26th. That's next Wednesday. And as you all know, the school budget is only a piece of the full municipal budget. We go first because we're the best, and then we get folded into the municipal budget, which we'll know a little bit more about next week. Items in motion is a phrase that we use for things that will change between first and second reading. And because of the way that the school budget calendar is built, there are always things that we know more about by the time we get to second reading than we do when we start. So that long process of a couple of months of work is going to be filled with all kinds of different kinds of information coming in and some adjustments being made by town and school leaders until we get a final result. The School Board Finance Committee has their first meeting regarding the budget next week on Monday evening. The Communications Committee gets really involved, school board and town council communications committees. And the school budget proposal will be refined and changed as we go along. So it's important to stay tuned and come along for the ride. So we have some resources out there for folks to tap into. We have a budget book, which is a very long and complex work. It includes an executive summary, which is a more encapsulated version of what's in the budget proposal, but it also has information from each school and each department, which is, I think, really interesting. And I live it every day, so I always find out something new when I get to read the budget book. It has an appendix, which has a lot of additional resources that aren't really part of the book, but that are back up to it. So if people want to go deep on some of the data that's in there, there's information there. We also have a line item budget detail, which is actually the individual 700 some budget accounts with all of the information that you need about each individual line. So depending on how much of a budget geek you are, you can go deep or you can stay at the summary level and learn a great deal. The link that's in here, I believe, is a live link to the Scarborough Schools Board budget page. This is where all of our documents for the budget are posted online on the Scarborough Schools webpage. There also is a budget link on the town's website. So whichever direction you come from, you can get to the school information. There's already a bunch of material posted there now, and there will continue to be material added each time that we have a meeting or an event that makes any changes or generates any new material. Oh, I did want to mention one new thing about the webpage, and don't go back. Never go back. We have Anne's example tonight of the presentation that she did for 8 Corners. We actually have video clips of the other presentations that have happened so far this year. So at the moment, there's high school, middle school Wentworth, there's adult education, and there's, what's the last one? Christopher, Special Services. And we'll put Anne's up there. So what Cheryl's learned to do, which is brilliant, is to cut out those little pieces from the board meeting, so you don't have to watch the whole meeting or go looking for it. But since we have that as a resource now, we decided to put that on the budget page as well. So the Leadership Council starts our year by reflecting on our mission, vision, and values. We develop goals every year to ensure that our decision-making and our work throughout the year is anchored to the foundations in our mission statement and our vision for improvement. Budget development is no different. So if we flip to the next page, you'll see that we have individual goals for our district for the current year, which again are linked back to those overarching goals. And we also have budget priorities. And this year, as the board has already heard, we're focused on capitalizing on prior investments. We're not looking to add any new proposals apart from staffing that's required to meet our legal obligations, especially in special services. This is an interesting slide that some of you who have been following the building committee work might recognize. We're good at repurposing material in the school department. We're sort of like a giant Ruth's Reusables. And this slide is interesting to me because as we were doing the work through the building committee, we've learned that a lot of our citizens just don't really know what school does nowadays. Some of these folks are like my age, and they went to school in a different time. I, got the horse and buggy out every morning and hitched up the pony and yeah, no, I actually had a carpool, I have to say. But there are so many things that schools do, particularly public schools nowadays, that just didn't happen 30 or 40 years ago. So this is a slide that kind of pulls together some of those ideas that might be quite different today from what you remember as going to school as a young person. I won't read them all. It's still cool though. So this chart is a comparison of actual spending in FY24, which is the last school year, 23-24, for 13 districts in Cumberland County. And as you can see, Scarborough's pretty much in the middle on overall spending per pupil. This data is collected by the Department of Education for every school district in the state. And so we can compare what other school districts around us are doing in a pretty consistent way because the data that they collect is broken out into the voter categories that each of our communities uses to split up the budget. So because it's split up, the data split up in that way, we're able to tell what types of spending different communities have, where their spending is targeted to. And so the little box on the right says that Scarborough consistently directs our funding, our budget, toward those expenses that most directly affect students. We are 5th of 13 districts in what we call direct instruction. So there's a bunch of little categories that go together, but it's basically classroom work. And 23% above the state average. We're 3rd of 13 districts and 19% above the state average in our special education services. But then when you look at transportation and facilities, school and system administration, we're at the bottom and we're below the state average on both of those categories, or all 4 of those categories. And so, there's a little bit of a point of pride here. And there's also a really obvious link to our goals, right? So you're looking at those district goals and you're saying, we're putting our money where it can do the most good for our students. So we kind of like this one. In the budget book, there's a ton of data here on that subject. The cohort group's a little bit different, but basically the same outcome. Special services, one of our major cost drivers in FY26, similar to recent years, we've heard this message before, is special services. We're proposing to add positions to meet the needs of incoming case students. That's basically our one new proposal this year. This slide is a snapshot of the types of programs we have right now and the number of students who are currently receiving those services. You've got a column for the number of students, you've got the percentage of special education that makes up, and that's what your pie chart is. But you also have the percentage of all the students in our district who are taking advantage of those services. I don't know if I should define those, but MLL is multilingual learners. It's okay, it's good. We'll let people figure out their acronyms. They're all defined in the book. Go read the book. It's such a good book. There we go. So multi-tiered systems of support. Here's a good acronym for you. Again, back to our budget goals. District goals, one of our major goals this year is to enhance, develop, analyze, improve, any kind of verb you want to use, our multi-tiered systems of support. This is an area of concentration for all of our schools right now. This slide's giving you a snapshot, and Anne spoke to this earlier, of the number of students who are receiving support and intervention this year outside of the general ed classroom. But MTSS is looking at students where they are with the goal of helping them to be successful in the general ed setting, in general education in their classroom. It's a critical layer of intervention for students who might be struggling, but don't have a disability or don't qualify for special education. So this is an area that the district is just passionate about, let's say, and focusing heavily on. A little note about budget revenues. Most funding for education in Scarborough comes from our taxpayers. Most of our non-tax revenue in Scarborough comes from general purpose aid, sometimes called GPA or state subsidy. That's the Department of Education in the state of Maine, sending money to each school district to support their programs. The chart on the left is showing the year-to-year changes in subsidy that's been allocated to Scarborough over the past 10 years. And for FY26, we're expecting an increase of just over $1 million from the current year. It's not as big as of a jump as we had last year or the year before, where we were coming from nothing, but it is definitely good news. And every increase that we can get in subsidy is an increase that we don't have to pass on to our taxpayers. The state funding formula is notoriously complicated, but most of the increase in FY26 for Scarborough can be attributed to special education costs that we've had in prior years that are then reimbursed to the districts. And also to the higher number of economically disadvantaged students that we're counting in Scarborough, because those students have a heavier weight in the formula and provide more funding to the community. On the right-hand side, you're looking at a chart that talks about the percentage of our school budget that's actually paid for by general purpose aid from the state. And you hear folks talk about the fact that the state pays 55% of the cost of public education, K-12 education in the state of Maine. That does not mean that every school department gets 55% of the cost of their budget. What it means is that the state figures out what they think education as a whole costs in the state of Maine across all districts, and then funds that at 55%. And then divides that out based on the community's ability to pay, their perception of the community's ability to pay. So in Scarborough right now, the amount that we're expecting to receive in FY '26 is going to fund about 12, well, just under 13%, 12.6% of our operating budget. Not 55%, but better than a poke in the eye. That's technical financial talk right there. This slide is about federal funding. A hot topic right at the moment, lots of headlines around this subject right now. What this does for you, and this is a really teeny chart, there's a lot of teeny charts in these slides, but all of these are larger in the book, and the book is a PDF, and the PDF is online, and you can use your magic magnifier on your screen to make it legible. This chart talks about what you could call our risk or our exposure to the loss of federal funds. Scarborough doesn't receive a huge amount of federal funding, which, you know, in some days we thought was a sad thing. Right now it feels like a pretty good idea, that we're a little bit lucky that we don't rely to the extent that some other districts do on federal funds. The stance that we're hearing from those who lead these things at the Department of Education, and educational leaders across the country is that at the moment, there's no legal reason to assume that we are going to lose federal funding. That there's a lot of chaos swirling around, but that only Congress really has the right to authorize programs and funding that we rely on for federal funds. So basically, this slide is an acknowledgement. We get it. We understand there's a lot of confusion and concern, and we're keeping an eye on things, but we're not making any proposals in our budget to change the way that we think those federal funds will be used for next year. Major cost drivers. These are so familiar to me. I think I could just use the same slide every year. I did add one this year. Personnel costs. Our budget, the school department's budget, is over 80% people. We don't have a lot of spending comparatively on stuff or services, even utilities. People are our business, and so that's where the bulk of our budget goes. I won't read the whole slide to you, but basically the $3.3 million of personnel costs is the amount of an increase that's attributable in this budget to those human beings. Anthem Health Insurance, out of all those personnel costs in terms of salaries and benefits, is a huge piece. That's the largest benefit cost that we have. We don't have our current Anthem rates. That's one of those things we talk about with items in motion. We'll know what our true rate is before we get to second reading. We're currently estimating an 8% increase, which is the tallest increase that we've had in the past few years. Anthem is telling us that they're going to have big increases this year, and that adds just under $600,000 to the budget. The paid family medical leave program. I was trying to say Maine paid family, and it wasn't going. This is a new state statute. All employers in the state of Maine are paying at least 0.5% of all wages to the state for this new fund that's going to create a paid family leave program that people can apply to in another year once there's some money in there. And this is a requirement that's going to add a little over $200,000 to this budget. And then lastly, we've got the special services needs, which I just spoke about. And we have, in this budget, we have 9 new ed tech positions and a half-time speech position. So this is kind of a new chart for us this year. It's the difference between our level services budget, which is sort of got a bunch of different names, the status quo budget, the basic operating budget. The level services budget is what we call the budget that allows us to do what we're doing today at an estimated cost for next year. And we were trying to be a little bit more detailed in how we present that this year. So what we've got here is a breakdown of the types of expenses again, so that you can see not just what level services is as a whole, but what the individual elements of our spending do to that level services amount. The level services amount is the first amount that we gather when we start to sit down with our team. And it's the beginning baseline of our budget. Again, talking about what we have now and what it might cost moving into the new year. The next thing we have is called reduced level services. Our leadership team gets together in individual meetings, each school and department, with our central office leadership team, and we literally go through every single line item one by one and review what's in it today, what we need to be in it tomorrow, meaning next year. What are we going to change? What are we going to reduce? Is there anything we need to add? And as you see this reduced level services chart, you can see that what we're trying to do is to reduce as much as we can anything that we have control over to offset those costs for the personnel, where we know that salaries and benefits are going to go up because they're based on collective bargaining agreements, they're based on insurance costs that we don't have control over. The other thing that goes on during this work is figuring out class sizes, figuring out projected enrollments, and how many teachers we have in each building and where they need to go, and can we afford to move a position, or do we need to add a position, depending on our target class sizes. In this case, this year, we have 2 retirees, one at K2 and one at Wentworth, and we are going to be able to leave those positions unfilled because of the way that the class sizes are shifting and still meet our targeted class sizes. So the reduced level services budget has a reduction based on not filling those positions. So your level services is not exactly level because you're taking a couple of people away. The other thing that's on that chart, which is also on this one, so you don't have to go back, is the pre-K program. You want to talk about items in motion. We have one here. We have just got done presenting that our pre-K program is going to be fully covered by a Department of Education grant for next year. So we didn't have that in our budget proposal. And this morning, we got an email saying that they didn't think they had it.
Afternoon.
They didn't have.
Just after the workshop.
They didn't have their numbers quite right, and that they were really only going to be able to support us for half the year. So needless to say, we have a meeting with them next week to talk about what the heck that's all about. But we may see a little piece of that coming back around. We won't see all of that coming back in. But this is a reduction, the reductions that happen before any new ads are added into the budget proposal. Then you have the ads. And this year, the ads that we're proposing are really just critical positions that are necessary to serve the needs of our actual students, actual children that we know are coming, new kindergarten kiddos, and also we have a half of a position that's being proposed on the town side. And you'll see if you read all of the good things in the budget book that we have a shared services agreement with the town. And IT, and instructional technology, is part of that shared system. The folks who work in IT are town employees, and the school department pays a share of their personnel costs. So there's a new position being proposed for some very good reasons that we've gone through, and our half of that person's cost would be reimbursed to the town. So the outcome of all of this is the budget proposal that the Leadership Council is handing on to the board this evening. And this is the actual bottom line proposal. And at the bottom, you see the little box with the new positions in it. In this budget, there's a total new investment of $599,000, which, as you can see, is a very small fraction of the overall proposed budget. And the net new investment, after we reallocate those two positions, is an even smaller percentage of the overall budget. Not a lot of new things here. We're really focused on solidifying and working with the resources that we do have and maintaining them. This chart represents the 3 operating budgets that make up the overall education budget. So this one includes adult education and school nutrition. It shows the gross, which is the overall, that line, total education budget expenditure increase. That's the 7.48%. And then it adds in the non-tax revenues and shows you the net tax request, which is what goes to the town. That's the amount of money that we need to raise in the town. These amounts are going to be included in the municipal budget. So when you see that 6.85%, that doesn't mean your taxes are going up by 6.85%. It's the number overall increase, and then it's folded into the municipal budget, recalculated with valuation increases, and eventually you get to the budget rate increase. And we'll hear a lot more about that next week. Next is capital projects. We use the capital budget for our large-scale investments, major repairs, major replacements of equipment, sometimes multi-year plans and programs going on. And the capital budget is in the back of the budget book. There's a detailed description, a narrative description, pages 76 through 80, and there's even more detail in the appendix section. Basically, but what we're saying here is that we have a section of capital budget in technology. We have a section in transportation, and we have the bulk of it in facilities, where we have multiple different types of accounts that we use for ongoing large-scale repairs. And in this year's budget, we have 2 segments to the capital improvements budget. We have the equipment segment, and we have the project segment. And the total budget is just a little over $5 million. And the funding source is that capital projects can be funded with municipal bonds. They can be funded with reserve funds. They can also be funded with appropriating taxes. And so that's not something that the board decides. It's something that the town finance office puts together, and they have parameters that they use. It's my sense that most of the capital budget that we have this year will be bonded. But we'll have more conversation about that in finance once we have that all ironed out with the town finance office. This slide is just a summary of the proposal, and this is what's going to be adopted by the board tonight. Each one of the funds, you'll see, has a gross and offsetting revenue, and then a net ask to the town. School nutrition department, now for the 4th year, I believe, has no tax request to the town because they've been self-supporting since their reimbursement model was first taken on by the USDA and now is fully supported by the state. So between the revenues we raise ourselves and the reimbursements we get from the state, that program does not need any tax revenue. I think the only other thing we have really is the items in motion, which is the next thing, and we've talked about that a little bit. Oh, we got fancy scrolls. I thought I got all those out of there. We love the fancy scrolls. So this, again, is just a reminder that this is just the first reading, and we have a lot of work to do. We're going to know more about Anthem Health Insurance. In the next few weeks, we'll get a maximum rate, and then in another month, we'll know our actual rate. Delta Dental, other insurance, we're working on renewals with our property insurance, auto insurance, workers' comp, all of those things will be happening as we go through the process. Special education costs, Chris has the joy of meeting with CDS regularly and getting phone calls from folks telling him about their children and how much they want to come to Scarborough schools. So that'll be an update that we need as we go through the process. And then the other thing too is that we're all the way collecting quotes for services. We're getting renewal quotes from all of our vendors. Our facilities director is getting quotes on some of the big capital projects so that we can have more specific numbers instead of, the estimates that we currently have. This chart is a calendar, and look at those fancy transitions. I just love those. There's no music playing. It can't be Mike's. So tonight is the handoff of the Leadership Council's budget to the board. Starting next week, the board, through their finance committee and through regular meetings, is going to shepherd the proposal through the rest of the process. We've already had some in the workshops, had some requests for additional data and some things we're going to be taking a look at, some questions we have. And we'll be taking up that work in the public and posting all kinds of information as we go along. I would just want to suggest to folks that rather than take this calendar as gospel, they might want to check as the dates come closer. If you want to connect with us at meetings, because sometimes times will change, sometimes even dates will change. But if you flip to the next slide, right, these things are all available on the town website and on the school website. And if you follow school board meetings at all, you know where our meetings page is. Everything will be there. They'll also be posted on the budget page. And anytime there's an update in the calendar, we'll try to get that posted up as quickly as we can. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Kate. All right. For right now, are there any questions for Kate on her presentation? I have a question about the pre-K.
Mhm.
I have a few questions, but I guess we're gonna find more out on Tuesday.
Yeah,
for what
we
she
have,
said.
we have a meeting with the Department of Ed folks that are heading up that project on Tuesday. And so I think we'll have a lot more information. I don't know that we'll have anything to share at Finance Committee. But what we're looking at right now is and this is all just sort of very vague at the moment, is that they have a deadline on the grant funds that they can only distribute them through December. And they thought that they could distribute them through the following June. So we have to find out what that means. We
Yeah,
have-
so historically, they've been able to have carryover, time for carryover funds. And seemingly, the department has been contacted and made aware that they will not have the allowance for the extension of that time frame for carryover. So we had a meeting already scheduled with the DOE on Tuesday just to work out the particulars of the year 2 grant and the finances for that, because as you probably recall, last year, that being our first year, there were some startup costs that were built into that. And so we were aware that we would not be expecting the same allocation, but we're only anticipating backing out those startup costs. And so now with the carryover not being allowed, seemingly, we're going to need to work more closely with the DOE on figuring out what that allocation is going to be. And interestingly enough, there are only 2 districts in this position, ourselves and Sanford, because we just happen to be the only people in year 1 of this grant cycle. I'm not sure that we could have any 2 different districts in this position because Sanford may fare better than Scarborough because they are a much higher state receiver of funds, right? And so it all goes back to, general purpose aid and what's allocated, right? So the DOE is signaling to us, we'll take a look at your 279 because you'll still get that allocation. But as Kate and I have talked with you previously, our allocation for general purpose aid from the state is somewhere in the order of, just over 12%. right? Because we are a really low receiver. We're not a minimum receiver, right? But we are very low comparatively speaking. So if you were a higher receiver, the allocation the per pupil allocation that is within the 279, you would be getting a greater percentage of that amount of money.
Yes, that I can understand. And I can understand that we wouldn't have the startup cost year over year. That the expectation would be that you don't have to start a program, right, brand new for year 2. So I can wrap my head around that the funds were going to decrease because what I can't wrap my head around is where is the money? And not for you, like, these are the questions I would want answers from the meeting on Tuesday. Do we sign a document? Do we sign a contract? Is there how does this process typically go?
As far as the current grant is concerned, we do have a contract. We have an agreement. We made a grant application like we would do with any kind of a grant, and we were awarded that
For this year.
for this year.
This year, we know.
But
the
we
number.
don't have a contract for next
the
year,
second
you see,
That's what
because
Tuesday's
what
meeting
this
is
is.
for. Tuesday's
Yeah.
meeting was
Okay.
always originally about what is the number of your allocation going to be for this year, right?
Got it.
And,
the difference is that we had been led to believe that there would be plenty of money for the full cost of the second year
Correct.
as well.
Right, which is what we've been telling,
Every-
you've been telling us, we've
everybody.
been telling the community.
Yes.
Um,
I don't,
it feels a little bait and switch to me. and
oh,
so
yes.
I'm really
Oh, yeah.
irritated right now about this. And it's not, I don't know if you're anticipating the money to end in December. What is the expectation for the district to do when school starts in August and September? Do we expect to bring 16 kids in and then in December say, I'm sorry? I mean, I know we wouldn't do that, but from a state perspective, what are they expecting the school district, the two that are going to have this problem? What is the expectation?
for us
Well,
to
I
use
think
their
they're,
local.
yeah, I think they're just saying, well, y'all will be fine. Don't worry about it. You can have some money and you take care of the rest.
They don't research our 279 individually.
They
per
don't
se,
recognize
right?
that
Like,
what
that's not
they,
their
yeah,
responsibility.
our allocation in the EPS formula is about $160,000, but we'll only see 20,000 of that
Right.
in subsidy. So they don't really understand how that works, I'm sure. And that's a good question, right? We could just say, I'm sorry, we can't have a pre-K program because we can't pay for the second half of it. But we're just in the beginning stages of having that conversation.
Right, and we just had a workshop where I didn't get the expectation from anyone that they wanted to let go of the pre-K program. Right, I mean, we can have the conversation again as a board when we know more, but I didn't walk away from that workshop thinking that we had a single board member that wanted to let go of the one program we had. And in fact, we're asking how we can expand.
Mhm.
And so this is really, really frustrating.
Mhm.
And if nothing else, it feels like a bait and switch. It feels like a disservice to the members of this community. And that is the message I hope you convey
Yeah.
on our behalf.
And, respectfully, I'm not, sure where any finger pointing should happen. My guess is that our state DOE is at the mercy of others, right? It's a really changing political climate. And so I can imagine how that might be playing into this bigger picture.
Can I, just a clarifying question, is it that the money's running out or that the grant has to be paid out by December 31st?
Yes.
I think it's the second of the two.
Mhm.
Again, we don't have a lot of details. We have like one email that's like, oh, by the way,
Yeah, I guess.
this is a problem. So that's, what we hope to learn a little bit more about. I need to understand the timeline. I need to understand how the carryover works. I've
Sure.
got a whole spreadsheet full of questions.
Yeah, I think in my brain, I'm trying to find the silver lining or the hope available. So I'm.
Well, I guess,
Can they
I mean,
pay out a large chunk by December 31st to cover us through June? If
that's something we've already sort of talked about, like, could we prepay anything? Most of it's in salaries, though, for the staff, which you really can't do that. You can't prepay people to work because you have to prove that they've done the work. But there could be some workarounds, and it's really all going to depend on how their allocation is coming to them to be able to distribute it. So
Do you know where their allocation comes from?
it's a state program,
Right.
but I don't know where the
You don't
money
know.
comes from. It was funded by the legislature originally, and I think that's part of the issue is that there's been some discussion in the legislature about pulling back. So I didn't actually get to hear anything substantive listening to public hearings at the legislature last week. There was some talk about it, but I didn't hear anything real.
Do you feel like this should be on our list of items in motion
Oh, yes.
right now? So maybe
Oh,
like adding
yes.
that to the.
It's already on my list.
Yes.
Not only is it on my handwritten list on a pad of paper, but it's already typed into, into a document. Yeah, because I don't think, I mean, I think if there's any good news to it, it's a small program. I mean, I don't want to say that we have, $60,000 in our back pocket or whatever the difference is going to be. But we aren't looking for $500,000 either, right? So it could be something that we could manage, just depending on how the parameters work out, how
Yeah, and
much they can help us.
And I appreciate that. And it could be a 50-cent increase and I would still be irritated right here because it feels like we were told one thing and we went forward to our community that is begging for transparency and honesty, which we are all doing. And now we have to go back almost, I don't want to say with egg on our face, but and say to the community, we know we told you these things, but
We have
now we
new
have a
information.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel good. And when you're looking at a state program that's going to ask us to fund CDC services or to take on CDC services and CDS services, I'm sorry, not CDC. No, we're not offering CDC programs here in Scarborough. CDS programs. And, we talk about preschool, we talk about all these things that get pushed down to the local level. This is why people get irritated with it. Because you can't keep pushing things down with the expectation that we can just keep asking for more and more and more.
Yeah, well, and particularly as Diane pointed out, in a community like Scarborough where you're not getting a reimbursement that makes a big difference to your taxpayers, that makes it a heavier lift, and it makes it all the more important that we are clear with our community of what it is that we're asking for.
And I'm not irritated with either of you, just to be clear. I am very irritated on the other end.
I didn't think you were
We're not any
irritated
more
with me.
pleased.
Yeah.
No, you could have heard some bad words.
No.
When we got
Cameras
that.
at Central
There were some naughty words that would not be tolerated at Eight Corners School.
You might have to take some of those quotes, put them up in your office.
I've already got the banking one on my wall. I
Yes,
love
yes.
that.
There's some really good ones there. All right. Any other questions for Kate on her presentation?
Yeah, I have some questions. So in the past with our presentations, we had information about unmet needs and things that we elected not to fund. And I don't see that in any of the workshop materials or any of your presentation today. That was something the town council particularly asked for from us last season. And I wonder what they are and why we weren't provided with that ahead of time.
So that's a deliberate choice on the part of our leadership team. And it has to do with the fact that our level services budget and the essential investments that we need to make are already driving our tax ask up considerably higher than it was last year. Last year at this time, we were going to the town with a less than a 5% tax request increase. And this year we're close to 7%. And the reasons for that are all those cost drivers we're talking about: collective bargaining agreements, negotiated increases in pay, expected increases in benefits. So as a leadership team, we did go through the exercise of talking about what new proposals we might need, what we might want. And we literally, as a team, said, this is not the time. We're good with what we have. As long as we can retain what we have, hold on to it, and not lose it, we are going to be in a good place.
What I heard last year from the town council specifically was they wanted to know what our needs were that we weren't putting forward. And I'm extremely disappointed that we're not going to be able to answer that question this year, because I know world language teachers have been on that for a number of years. I know last year we deferred a truck payment. I know we went without early interventionists at K through 2. I know that we don't have world language teachers at A through 2. I know academic support is a need. If you look at our if you look at our ESSA data, and we're lagging in certain areas that we have dipped in specifically, there's still a COVID bubble, where services to intervene would be important. And I don't think it's fair to our community or to our town council to be not clear with them what they're electing not to invest in if they don't have the option to even see it. Hiding what we need because we think we're asking for too much is a strategy, but it is not transparent. It's not honest about how we get our math scores up, for example.
I would, Trilla, I would push back a little bit on the fact that we're hiding anything. I really believe that our team has the resources that they need. I've listened to a lot of conversations. Could we ask for something else and more? Of course, everybody can always come up with an idea of something else they could add to their budget. That would be great. That would be helpful. But do we need? Are we missing? Do we have a deficit? I would say, from what I have heard, no.
And I guess I would add to that, just, again, I think as a full team, we've talked a lot about, you've heard us say now for 3 days, right? Like, we're really capitalizing on the prior investments. And we say that very genuinely, because if we look at the past 3 budget years and the investments that this community has made in intervention positions specifically, in our MTSS, we are much deeper in that level of being able to meet that level of service now than we were 3 years ago. And I think, you heard our school leaders give their presentations yesterday. Some of these positions are still in their infancy and being developed. And so at this time, to just say, let's bring in more people, we don't feel like that is the most responsible thing to do. We also shared with the board what our rates are of students who are meeting grade level standards. And actually, I feel like that is a huge point of pride, because as you saw in the last couple of days, depending on what grade level you're looking at, we're somewhere between 70 and 85% of our students meeting grade level standards. And then we showed all of the cadre of intervention services we have for the students who are not meeting that. So I really just feel like it is important to point that out.
I hear what you're saying, but I still believe that that's information that we owe the public. And that's information that is being deprived from this body, from the town council, and from this discussion. I don't appreciate it. I also have questions about the capital reserve fund. In the past few years, we have funded that fund, that capital reserve fund, using fund balance, I believe, if I recall correctly. I don't see that anywhere in this budget this year.
We currently have a balance of about $800,000 in capital reserves. And it was my impression that those funds were being retained to be used for an interim solution between the referendum approval of a new building and the students who are going to need a place to go in the intervening years before that building is built, whatever it is, or buildings. So we do have $800,000 in capital reserves. Also in the capital budget, we have $600,000, which could be bonded for whatever that potential solution may be, which would give us a total of $1.4 million, which would be a pretty decent amount. We can use the capital reserve funds to fund anything in our capital budget right now, or we can hang on to them. Right now, there haven't been any funding sources discussed for the capital budget that we have today. So this group could elect to use that $800,000 in the coming year or hang on to it.
I think you mistake my question. I'm not looking to use that money from the capital reserve funds. That's money that we deliberately set aside relatively recently to build that fund up.
Right.
So that when capital projects such as the track and turf come by and other normal, regular routine projects come up, we don't have to bond all the time. We've used that money for school buses, for example, and we're using that money in order to switch some of the way we spend, but also to save money for projects that are coming, not just the interim solution, which is going to require more than $800,000,
Sure.
but for a number of projects. And so I would like to know if we're planning to just zero that out and not save for our future needs in this budget and be honest about that as well.
Not
Because
if I
that's
can
something
help
that-
it.
Because I think it's important that we tell people how we're being good stewards of their money now and in the future.
Yeah, the message that I've given to the town manager is that we don't want to touch that money. We need that.
I'm talking about putting more money in.
Oh, sure, we
Saving
can do
money
that
every
too.
single year that we can from our budget, from our fund
Okay,
balance.
gotcha,
Building
gotcha.
that fund up.
So here's the thing about that. You can't budget money and then save it. What you have to do is you budget the money at the end of the school year, you have some left over, and then you put it in there. So I'm anticipating that at the end of FY '25, where we are today, we'll have surplus and we'll allocate more of that surplus to that fund until we can continuously build that balance up. But we're not putting in the budget an amount for next year that we then will save at the end of next year.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What
Okay,
I'm saying
I'm
is
not
we're
getting ya.
using fund balance from last year to move it forward as part of our revenues. And historically, we've used that to put into fund balance or to put into capital reserves. So we're not doing that this year in this budget, I believe.
Are you talking about the fund balance that's listed in the revenue section? So that's not the capital reserve money.
I am aware of that, but is that one of the sources we've used in the past to
Yes.
put money into capital reserves, and we're choosing not to do that this year?
No.
I'm sorry, hang on one second. Can you tell us what slide you're looking at?
I think she's referring to the fact that we have $1.5 million as non-tax revenue
That's correct.
in our general fund operating budget. That's the same amount that we've had for the past 3 years, right? So what we're saying is that we believe that we have, well, first of all, we have that money in the bank now, nothing to do with the capital reserves. We believe that year over year will generate more or less that amount of money at the end of the year, plus an amount to put into capital reserves, which is what we did last year. We had the 1.5 million plus enough to put $800,000. So I really, really, really agree with you. I have the utmost respect for the idea of keeping that capital reserve fund alive and well, continuing to add to it as robustly as we possibly can at the end of every year. But I don't think that that really, I don't think that the use of the $1.5 million is going to derail that at all. Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I got there.
Get very,
We got to have the money for those cute buses.
Any other questions for Kate? No? All right, don't go far.
Right here.
Agenda item 9.0 is general public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make general public comment this evening? Anyone online? Yeah.
My name's John Raby. I live at Forest State Drive. It turns out that portions of what I've heard tonight have something to do with what I'm about to say, especially the Student Spotlight Award that was presented tonight. I don't know whether you've seen it, but last week, the Organization of American Historians and the American Historical Association issued a statement concerning the federal government's current treatment of American history. Have you seen it? You've seen it? Good for you. All right. Now, I have a copy of it on me. I'm going to turn it over to you for your reference. But with your permission, I'd like to read some excerpts into the public record. May I do that?
You have about 2.5 minutes left.
Okay. Together, the Organization of American Historians and the American Historical Association condemn recent efforts to censor historical content on federal government websites, at many public museums, and across a wide swath of government resources that include essential data. New policies that purge words, phrases, and content that some officials deem suspect on ideological grounds constitute a systemic campaign to distort, manipulate, and erase significant parts of the historical record. Recent directives insidiously prioritize narrow ideology over historical research, historical accuracy, and the actual experiences of Americans. It is bad enough to forget the past. It is even worse to intentionally deny the public access to what we remember, have documented, and have expended public resources to disseminate. Words matter. Precision matters. Context matters. Expertise matters. Democracy matters. We can neither deny what happened nor invent things that did not happen. Recent executive orders and other federal directives alter the public record in ways that are contrary to historical evidence. They result in deceitful narratives of the past that violate the professional standards of our discipline. When government entities or scholars themselves censor the use of particular words, they in effect censor historical evidence. Censorship and distortion erase people and institutions from history. Our professional ethics require that all historians believe in honoring the integrity of the historical record. We expect our nation's leadership to adhere to the same basic standard, and we will continue to monitor, protest, and place in the historical record any censorship of American historical facts. Now, I couldn't help notice that the young lady who got the Student Spotlight Award tonight represents exactly what our nation's historians are trying to defend. Now, what I hope you do, all of you, is read and study this statement. I hope you endorse it, and I hope that you communicate that endorsement to the town council, to our state legislators, and to our members of Congress. This is serious business, and I could cite example after example of what has been done. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thanks for your time.
Is there anyone else online wishing to make public comment? Thank you very much. Thank you.
You've got my email, so just let me know what happens, please.
Okay, will do. Thank you. All right, I'm sorry, so no one? Okay, thank you. So seeing none, I will close general public comment. Agenda item 10.0 is new business. 10.1 is the first reading of FY26 school budget. So Jenna, you ready for your big moment?
My favorite part every year. Okay, here we go. You're gonna hear a lot of numbers coming from me and hopefully I don't mess them up. All right, so we are looking to move approval to adopt the Leadership Council's budget proposal as presented for first reading. Total general fund operating budget is proposed at $70,784,760. I think I already messed it up. $764 with offsetting non-tax revenues of $10,904,747 and a tax request to the town of $59,880,017. Total adult education budget is proposed at $232,967 with offsetting non-tax revenues of $136,009 and a tax request to the town of $96,958. Total school nutrition budget is proposed at $2,535,247 with offsetting non-tax revenues of $2,535,247 and no tax requests to the town. Capital equipment proposed budget is $1,186,000 and capital projects proposed budget is $4,194,000 for a total capital improvements budget of $5,380,000. Oh, I think your mic is off, Shannon.
Thank you. I said, awesome job. Thank you. Not a single mistake. All right, do I have a motion to approve the first reading of the FY 26 school budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion?
I have a point of order. Sure. Under our policy DB, this is not brought properly before this board. Under our policy, this budget is supposed to be forwarded to the Committee for Finance to review it, to propose amendments to it, and then for the committee to bring it forward to this board. So I have a point of order that we are not following our own policies. The reason for those policies is that this budget becomes the board's budget, and we have not had a chance to vet it through the committee process, which is how we do our business, and to do any of the amendments that we normally would do. And all my comments today, as you have a lot of questions, that could have been, and more appropriately, would have been directed to a committee process. And then we would have brought it before the town, before the board here for first reading, which is the appropriate procedure for this. And it's not the appropriate, it's not in order, it's not in accordance with our policies. And I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. And there's important philosophical reasons for that. A, we should be following our policies and be faithful to them. The second is because this becomes our budget that we have an obligation to go out and support. And we have been deprived of the opportunity to do that through the fact that the process wasn't followed.
So help me understand here. I'm going to ask a couple questions. Okay, I'm sorry, I have 800 windows open. Okay. So when did the finance committee last meet? Did you look at it as a finance committee?
No, it was not ready. So the other part of that is the first time I saw the budget was when I got the budget book at the workshop this week. I do most of my preparation for meetings on the weekends because of my work schedule. This week was a particularly hectic work week for me. And so I was up very late last night trying to go through the budget. I did not have the time to review it that I should have had time to. I did not have any ability at the committee to do any amendments. We were not allowed the opportunity to do that because of the lack of process that we followed. I have lots of questions, pre-K investment in the future. I understand that the Leadership Council does not, I understand and quite frankly, they have a very responsible proposal. I don't fault them for that. I don't think that they've done a bad job. I think they've done a tremendous job. But there are initiatives that this committee may choose to invest, pre-K being one of them. I'm not talking about what happened today, but I'm talking about pre-K in general. We had a workshop on pre-K. We have a community who wants pre-K. If we wanted to bring forward a proposal to fund pre-K or another pre-K classroom, we could do that through this budget, but we're not allowed, we can't do that at this point. And now that the budget is now up for first reading and will go before the town council next week, we have no ability to have any real impact in this budget that we are adopting as ours. I object to that.
Well, I hear you. Yes, I hear you. I hear you are objecting to this. But what about the, between the first and the second reading? What about the meeting? Do you have finance meetings set up then?
We do, but the cart is already down the road. The snowball is down the hill. This is going before town council next week. Yes, we can definitely make amendments and we will make amendments. We always are going to make amendments. Anthem rates will come in, we'll get a fixed number. We have to deal with the pre-K issue. The town council will have input. We will deal with amendments. But we haven't had a chance to put any of our own personal amendments or initiatives into it and to have a debate about that. We could reject all of them. But we haven't even had the opportunity to do that, nor will we.
I'm trying to think through what do you have a request for us or what is it you're wanting the board to do?
There's nothing the board can do at this point. I mean, we could hold up first reading. That would be very problematic because there's a tight timeline. But I think it bears note, and I raised this before this meeting, just to be clear with everybody. This is not a surprise to everybody. But this is a problematic. You know, I don't like the fact that I am now being forced to endorse this budget and go out and support it without having had any ability to impact or have any ability to amend it, or have any input whatsoever into it, other than me approving first reading and then doing whatever we do between the two, which is mostly in response to town council. That is a problem for me personally.
Can I just clarify, you won't have the time at the next finance committee meeting to make the amendments that you'd like to see, like a line item or?
What I'm saying is, we have now put into the public sphere a budget. We could do that. The way that we typically bring forward things through committee is we vet them at the committee. We make changes at the committee. Think about SBAC, you're on SBAC. Work happens at that committee. Changes happen at that committee before it becomes brought before the full board, before it goes before the town council. We have no ability to make any real amendment at this point, except in response to what the town council tells us to do next week.
My mind is, I'm trying to think this through, because I think you can. However, I think your larger point is that the budget is already out in the public world. And now if I'm hearing you correctly, if you go to make any changes that you were interested in, you, Frayla, or Jenna, or Alyssa on finance is interested in making, if the budget request is 6.8, now it might be 7.0. Like, you're going to go up before. I'm thinking as I'm talking, this is difficult for me. Okay, how do I word this? So if I hear you correctly, in the past, you would have, any amendments that finance had, you would have brought it up before, you would have discussed it at finance, you would have debated it, you would have decided yes or no. And then it would have come to the full council. I mean, I'm sorry, the full board. But what's happening now is the full board is seeing it, and you're saying that the finance committee hasn't had that opportunity. And so if you make an amendment now, it's going to drive that up, and this budget is already out in the public sphere.
That's exactly right. That's
Okay.
exactly right. And it could go up or down, given last year's. Last budget season was probably not a normal budget season in terms of that. There was a lot of discussion, and there was there's a lot of stuff that happened last budget season. I don't remember the budget season before that all that well. I don't know if we followed our policy last budget season, but I didn't care. Last budget season, I was in full support of the budget. I would not have made any amendments. I was not interested in making amendments. And in fact, I was very vocal in supporting the budget. I'm not sure I would say that this time, but it doesn't matter. I feel like I've been deprived of my opportunity to have a fully fair time to vet it with the finance committee and discuss it and then put it forward to this board. I think we're out of order. I don't think, it does not go from the leadership council to this town to our board. It goes from the leadership council to the finance committee to this board. That's the proper process. And that's why, because it's at committee that we can actually do something with it. We are now stuck with it for better or for worse, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. And I'm objecting strongly to the procedure. I'm not proposing amendments tonight. I'm not doing that. But I am raising as a point of order that this is inappropriate and why it's inappropriate. I'm not angry for no reason. I'm not making a point to shut everything down just because I am wanting to take out my angst on the world. There's a process for a reason. The process is the budget should have gone before the finance committee 120 days before the end of the fiscal year, which would have been earlier this month. And then we bring it to the committee. I'm sorry, the committee brings it to the board. That's what our policy says. And that's why our policy says that. So that every member of this board understands why that's the policy. There's a reason for it. It's not arbitrary.
So are you wanting, I'm trying to understand what you're, like, I understand you want to make the point, like that piece I get. But what I'm also trying to understand is what are you hoping the outcome is tonight? Or what are you wanting the board to consider?
There's nothing the board can do. Our hands have been tied. I am frustrated about that. I feel
get
like I have been
that. I
deprived
understand
of
that.
proper process. There's nothing that I can do other than vote against the budget. That's the only action that somebody could take in this instance. And
Yeah.
I'm not proposing that.
All right, I'm trying to think, at this point, I do think we are, when you look at the timing that's outlined in our policy, I do think we move forward with this tonight. For better or for worse, to your point. I do think that going forward, I'm gonna bring up my least favorite time in all of my years on the board, and it was our masking problem, when I didn't run the process properly. And we brought Melissa in and we had a conversation, and the thing that's running through my mind right now is Melissa saying something to the effect of, the intent was there, right? And so you carry on.
So I know that, I heard you say, Frayla, that you brought this up earlier this week, and that's correct. And I think there are some people in the room who don't know what the discussion was early in the week when the question was brought up. And, Kate did provide the history of how this has worked. She did provide information that we have received from legal in the past about how policy DB works out. And I'm just wondering if there's interest by any other members of the board in hearing about that.
Well, sure, I definitely think there would be, I think that's value added. Yeah.
Kate, is that something that you want to speak to? Again, I can speak for you, but I certainly wasn't, part of the historical information that you shared.
I'm not sitting here because I'm
No, I understand.
not interested. I'm sitting here because I'm gathering my thoughts and I don't have notes before me. I did put some things in writing earlier in the week. I will say that we did have some questions about the intersection between our policy, school board policy DB, the town charter, because we're a municipal school department, and how those two intersect, as well as state statute, which outlines and regulates the way that school departments present their budgets and the way that school boards go through a budget process each year. I will agree with Frayla that policy DB says something different from what we're doing. However, I don't feel that we were disingenuous in doing that because for the past at least 10 years, we've used the same process. And we've been given legal advice that said that the only way to make policy, which is sort of a template that comes from MSMA, statute, and town charter work together and meet those timelines, is to present to the full board in first reading and let the amendments come after. That's not to say that we couldn't change that. But my information that I provided earlier in the week or when we were having this conversation was that we haven't done that in the past and we've had what we thought was good reason to not do it that way.
I'm going to forward the email that you sent me to the full board. I'm happy to do that. I'll do that tonight so everyone can read.
That'd be
read it, so
great.
they have
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Do you?
And I have it up right now. I can send it to everybody. Yeah.
I think I've sort of parsed it pretty well, and if you share the written information, that would be great. Thank you.
So I just want to be sure I understand I just want to repeat what I heard you say. So you're saying that we, for the last 10 years, likely have not been following our policy as it's written.
To the letter.
To the letter. However, the legal advice you've gotten has said that the intersection of the various things that you just mentioned says that the board gets the budget at first reading and afterward the finance committee makes the changes. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you said?
That has been our practice, yes. And
Based on the legal guidance?
yes.
Okay.
And the finance committee, over the years has made some fairly drastic changes to what the leadership council has proposed. So, the fact that the budget has been, publicly presented, I think our stance was that it's presented as the leadership council's budget. It's the, suggestion, the same as the suggestion that the town manager makes to the town council. And then it's up to that governing board to dissect and consider and change and alter and do what they will with it.
I just want to say that, like, I completely agree with I believe what you're saying, but it's not legal that it has to go this way. There's some consult with legal, there's some timelines in there, and there is a way to make this congruent. It just would require it earlier, which would be good anyway. I think it'd be helpful to have that workshop, not the day up, but like the day up practically next to this presentation, because I have not had an opportunity to really digest it, and the workshops run over and we're not able to really ask questions and finish that process. So I'm still digesting the information that I had. I've reviewed, I was participating by Zoom, but I would rewatched it so that I could have a complete focus on it, which is a lot of time. And it just doesn't give us enough time to digest it and to make thoughtful, if I wanted to make a thoughtful amendment tonight, there's no way that I could have been prepared to do that. I'm not faulting you, Kate. You do a tremendous job with this budget. This was a drastically different budget presentation than the ones I've been experienced the last 2 years. So the way the budget's presented has changed quite a bit. That was a learning curve for me as well, because I'm not a finance person. I don't math in public. I'm good with words. I'm not as good as numbers. And so it takes a lot for me to study up and understand what I'm looking at. So I'm frustrated with the process. And then so I did what I do, which is read policy, because that's my safe space. And when I looked at it, I was like, well, there's a reason for that. And then I looked at the reasons why, and it makes sense there's a reason for that. So I would like to see it change in the future. I think there's a reason to change it in the future, and we can have further discussions about that. But like, I am not thrilled with this budget. I'll be very honest with you. I am not thrilled with this budget. I don't like it. And so I would likely have made amendments if we were at a committee and I'd had an opportunity to review it. I do not feel that I have had the time to formulate that in any thoughtful manner well enough to craft an amendment. And so now I'm stuck doing that at the last minute at second amendment, when there's a whole lot more stuff that we're going to be contending with. And that I feel deprived of my opportunity to impact this budget. And I am supported by the policy that we have. So that is the source of my frustration. And it's not directed at anyone individually. It's not a personal attack on the leadership team. I know you worked diligently and tirelessly for the last 4 months on this. This was a tremendous amount of work. It's important work. And I understand why you made the decisions you do. I completely get it. I'm just saying that I would have liked to have had a place to have input before I am going to be able to.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
I don't really have much to add.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
thought you were
I think Freyla really, she's absolutely correct in what she's saying and how she feels. And I think I'm correct in describing history and practice. And so I think, those two things can exist peacefully together. And, what we do in the future is in the future, right? And we can make changes if we feel that's necessary. I do just want to say that I don't want you to feel, I hear you saying that you feel your hands are tied, now you're done, you can't make changes. I have seen some very interesting, creative, and dramatic changes made between first and second reading by school boards, not just town councils. So I just want to offer that to you as some consolation, perhaps.
And maybe after we get through this budget season, maybe there's an opportunity, because this policy was last reviewed in 2013. So it's likely one that's going to come up to us anyway in policy.
Oh, dear.
Eighties.
I do.
That was a great decade.
After we get through the eighties and the nineties. But I wonder if there's an opportunity for two things on the finance committee. One is to look at this policy and maybe go through it as a finance committee. And look at, consider it with what your process is, right?
Right.
Because I am. a
It
bit-
should align with what our
Yes, we should
process
never have a
actually is.
policy that for, no offense, we should never, we as a board should not have a policy that we're not following. So if this needs updating, perhaps finance can take a look at this and say, this is our actual process. And then policy can look at the policy. So that would be number one. And number two, I wonder if it's helpful to make a calendar for the board members, because 120 days prior to the beginning, what is that actual date? Yeah, like making that actual calendar out, and maybe that's a secondary piece to this policy.
Well, and I guess I would also add too, right? Like, it seems to me that there would be value, the finance committee meets year round. So in my mind, there would be value at the very beginning of the budget season of going through, what are the expectations that the finance committee has for leadership, so that we're not arriving at the evening of first reading and hearing, the things that people are unsatisfied or disappointed about.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah.
Can I just add? I was actually very thankful that Freyla brought this to my attention this week. It was like at the very last second, but it caused me to go into the sense of panic, like, oh my gosh, have we been doing this wrong? And then after getting a little bit of clarity on the history from Kate, I felt better about it. And just like Freyla said, I don't think that you guys meant any harm by it. I think you guys spent a great amount of time on it, and you always do an excellent job presenting the information. And then just having been in this committee the last few years, it shocked me that I never actually reviewed that particular policy. And I do think it'll serve us some good to just look at it and really tease out what it means for that committee going forward. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I think there's some lessons learned for sure, right? We can always do better. Absolutely. All right. Is there anyone wishing to make general public comment? Well, first off, is there any more discussion? Is there anyone wishing to make general public comment on the FY26 school budget? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the first reading? Oh, no, we already did that. I'm sorry. Where are we? We took a first, we took a second, we have discussion. Okay, let's,
Can I do a point of information, point of clarity? One of the Robert's Rules points. As the items in motion, I don't know if I should be directing my question here or Kate, but as the items in motion become more clear, is that, should we expect, sorry, first year on the board. Should we expect to have all numbers for items in motion for second read, or do some of those extend beyond second read as well?
You can't change the budget after second reading.
Cannot.
Well, no, let me step back on that. Once the board takes second reading, the town council has their second reading. At the town council second reading, they could say, oh gosh, we want to make a change to the school budget. At which point the school board would come back together, and the town council has what they call bottom line authority. So let's pretend that we bring a budget that's $70 million and they say we want it to be $69 million. It's up to the school board then to allocate that reduction or that add, maybe they're going to add $1 million, that would be great, to the individual budget categories that go to the referendum. So I'm making this a little complicated, but all of those items in motion that we're talking about, we will bring those forward. Anything that we have, we're going to bring for second reading. The
Okay.
only thing that might happen after second reading is that the town council makes an unexpected move that we have to adjust to. We have
Okay.
we have to allocate whatever the change is to the budget categories.
But the super large ones, like my head is on the anthem rates.
Like the
to be
anthem
honest.
rates, we'll know that
Okay.
before second reading. So when you get to second reading, you're going to have these amendments that say, you know, we're going to increase this and we're going to move that, and we're going to change that. That's all built into the process of the second reading,
Okay.
which would also include any amendments that Finance Committee decided that they wanted to make for whatever reason, right? And we have, guess what? We have a spreadsheet, surprise, that starts with our first reading budget that we're doing right now, and then notes all the changes that might happen up and down, and then gets to a bottom line for second reading. And then at second reading and vote, you're voting on that new thing with the amendments.
Okay. And while I have your expertise here, if the situation with the pre-K grant is not entirely clear yet, is the board going to have to just make a decision based around that? Or-
Yeah, I think, I think we'll know enough to be able to make an informed decision. But I do think there's going to have to be choices around, are we going to ask the community to pony up whatever that number is to make it work for another year?
Okay. Thank you
But
very
I think we'll have good data for that choice to be made.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
No, don't apologize. Okay, we have 3 minutes. So I'm going to call the vote on this, and then I'm going to ask for an extension of time. So can we call the vote, Ray, for this?
Keller.
Yes.
Ms. Leon.
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Rockenstein.
No.
Mr. Peony Huff.
Yes.
Mr. Pinion.
Yes.
Ms. Raskina.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Given the time, do I have a motion to extend beyond 9:30?
So moved.
Any discussion? We don't have any public comment, right? Nobody was there.
No.
Okay, can we call the vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Kelleher.
Yes.
Ms. Leon.
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Rockenstein.
Yes.
Mr. Pinion.
Yes.
Mr. Peony Huff.
Yes.
Ms. Raskina.
Yes.
All right, perfect, thank you. Okay, agenda item 10.2 is the Power School mass action lawsuit. So I'm going to turn this over to Diane to tee up.
Great. So Ray is going to be, bringing into the meeting. Yep. Ray is going to be bringing in, and promoting attorney William Shinoff from the France Law Group. Just to give you a little bit of background, you probably recall in January, being informed that there was a breach of data with Power School, our student information system. This was a nationwide breach that happened. Across the country, millions of students and educators' personally identifiable information was compromised. Our team here in Scarborough worked very diligently and deliberately to find out exactly whose information had been shared and to what extent that was. To move us forward to today, there is Jen Day, our technology director, was contacted about this mass action litigation that is happening against Power School, and the district's opportunity to sign on to this. And so I will leave the rest to Attorney Shinoff. Welcome.
Thank you all very much. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. I know it's late there, so I'll try to keep it short and concise. So as you got the background about the issue that we're focused on in this matter. So my firm, we represent public entities across the country in a variety of matters. But in this matter, we are representing school districts across the country that were impacted by this recent breach at the end of 2024. What we're focused on is the fact that all these school districts pay for the services provided by PowerSchool. And with that payment, it's pursuant to a contract. Part of that contract is a data privacy agreement. In the data privacy agreement, PowerSchool makes guarantees and assurances of the level of security that they are going to provide for the information that you are storing on their system. And what they state is that their system is going to be, their cybersecurity is going to be up to federal and state guidelines. As a result of this breach, what we have learned is that they did not meet the minimum federal and state standards of cybersecurity. So what we do know then is that they breached the agreement in what they promised to be providing you as a result of the services that you paid for. In addition to that, what we do know is that you overpaid for the services that you provided for, because if we take out the fact of the cybersecurity you were paying for, the value that they provided is nowhere near the amount that your district has been paying over the years for their services. So what we're doing is a couple things. So one is we want to make sure that for the time and expenses that were incurred as a result of this breach, that your district is reimbursed for that time. The second part is we want to make sure that your district is reimbursed for the overpayment for the services provided by PowerSchool over the period that you have had a contract with PowerSchool. The other thing too, we want to provide too, in what it's called is called consequential damages. So this is as a consequence of their breach of the agreement, is that if your district decides ever to move from PowerSchool to another platform, is that you have the necessary funds to make that switch. Because if you do make that switch, it's very time intensive and very expensive. So we want to make sure that that funding does not have to come out of your general budget. Another issue that we're focused on is making sure that they indemnify you in the future. Because the fact is, as of today, there's been 35 class actions filed against PowerSchool by students and teachers across the country as a result of this breach. And when we're dealing with children, the statute of limitations of when they can bring an action is far into the future, because they have beyond the age of 18. In the contract that you do have with PowerSchool, you do have an indemnity provision. However, just because it's there does not mean that they're going to honor it. We've already seen them not honor the terms of the contracts with all the districts we represent. So in this matter, we're going to make sure that whether that's through a settlement or a judgment, that they will indemnify you if an action is ever brought against your district by a student or staff member as a result of this breach. And then finally, we are seeking what's called injunctive relief. So that's a court order that we're wanting this company to follow. We're actually going to be seeking a preliminary injunction due to the fact that many districts are not going to be leaving PowerSchool anytime soon. And even if they were going to leave in the very near future, as I said, it takes a lot of time to switch from platforms. We want to make sure their security today is what it should have been when you had your contract with them. So we're going to be requesting that they have to go and report to a special master to making sure that they are complying with state and federal guidelines so that no breach like this occurs. Because what we've learned, this was not a complex hack. This was just someone getting access to a username and password that easily could have been prevented, and 70 million people's information would have never been exposed. Two things since I want to keep it short, two questions I want to be able to answer for you, and then I'll open up to questions. First, there is no cost to your district to be involved in this matter. We do work on this on a contingency fee basis. So if there is no financial recovery, the district is paying no fees and costs. Our fees would come out of any recovery if there is any. And also we've reduced our fee from 40% to 30%. The other question is the amount of staff time that would have to be involved in this. This is going to be a mass action. So down the road, we will negotiate a questionnaire that our clients will have to go and complete. So our expectation is it should only be a few hours of staff time to be involved in this case. So with that being said, I wanted to open up to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Ready. I mean, I have 850, but questions for him?
Hi, Attorney Schnoff. Do you have any sense of whether Power School has the financial resources to realistically be able to actually pay out any school districts, especially on a mass action basis?
Yeah, so Power School represents 16,000 school districts across the country, which means that they are getting paid by 16,000 school districts every year for the services they provided. And obviously those fees can range from $5,000 to a year to over $1 million a year. But what we do know is Power School got purchased by a private equity company last year for $5.5 billion. And this is not a $5.5 billion case. So this is not a case that will bankrupt Power School. There will be districts that stay with them. But what we do want to do is make sure that you are appropriately reimbursed, and also make sure that if your district decides to stay with Power School, that your information is going to be safe in the future.
And just to, I was reading through the documents that we've gotten your documents ahead of time to prepare for this meeting. And for me, this was the first time I've really honestly read about a mass action lawsuit versus a class action. And so the way that I understand from reading these documents is that a mass action means that the district, each individual district that's participating essentially is suing for their specific costs. Is that, did I understand that correctly?
That's right.
Okay.
And the perfect example I like to give is a class action's good if you need to replace a battery in a car. Everyone has the same damages. Everyone needs either to get the money to replace the car or get the battery, or to get a new battery. For this, every district's damages are different. The amount they have in their contract, it's not a one size fits all box. The other benefit too is Power is in control of you, the district, because you have your own individual action. So if there is some proposed settlement and you're not happy with it, you can reject it and we move forward. In a class action, your only option is to opt out, and then you're kind of on your own at that point. But mass actions are also efficient because we consolidate all the cases together. We do discovery as one, and then we select cases to be the first few trials to kind of give the sense to each side on the strengths and weaknesses of their case.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And do you know in the contract, is there anything that spelled out the time that they should be communicating with the district if a breach occurred?
Yes. So each state has their own contract, and each state has their own laws that require how immediate they're supposed to provide notice. And so some states, they use the word immediate, some say specific days. What we do know is that they took, at a minimum, 16 days to notify your district, all the districts, that there was this breach. However, we still, to this day, they have not provided sufficient notice as required under your contract. They have not provided all the details they were required to, and that's the issue. Your own attorney, they have notified your attorney general, but what they've just did too is they're changing the numbers every day. So they're still haven't provided the notice that they're required.
Is there any other questions?
Is it just questions about the lawsuit in particular, like, can I ask about the particulars that led to this issue?
I don't see why not. I mean, there were great questions for the attorney.
Yeah, you said that a private equity company bought this before the breach.
That's correct.
And so were there changes to policy or security systems that led to this, or that, to your knowledge?
We have been told that school has been run since the private equity company took them over. There has been a big change. There's a lot of one department not talking to the other department. But what I do know from talking with other districts, the issues of security, that's been going on for years. So I don't think that's a change in Power School due to the fact of potential cost cutting. I don't think that's what that is.
Thank you.
And you did indicate, or I don't know if you said, or if I do remember reading this in there, but I guess you did say, if we as a district, want to go in another direction, from Power School, we can include that in this lawsuit as well, the costs for that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is something absolutely we're going to be claiming. And it's not required for that to be done during the pendency of this case.
Got it. Yeah.
Just as a piece of information for the board, our costs for Power School are paid for by the state.
Does that mean the state would recoup the cost of a settlement?
I think that's a great question for the attorney.
So that would be up to the state. The state could go and make a claim for, if we recover, for instance, the cost of overpayment, the state could make a claim for that part. They can't make a claim for the time and expense of dealing with the breach. They can't make a claim for the consequential damages that we would be getting for if you decided to change platforms. That would be something that, since that's not money the state has actually paid. And any other damages we get pursuant to the contract. But the only thing the state maybe could make a claim on is for the overpayment portion.
I have some questions. So it sounds like you have some information from the Attorney General about the information that they have. Have you been coordinating with the Maine Attorney General about this at all?
There's a multi-state investigation going on between a number of attorney generals, and we've spoken with a number of it. We've spoken with not the Maine Attorney General's office, but the other attorney general's offices that are working with them.
Has Maine joined that effort?
Yes, but
If Maine sues them, does that prevent our claim from moving forward?
no, because you have the contract with Power School. The Maine Attorney General can make a claim for what the state has paid, but they can't go and bring a contractual claim on behalf of your district.
And it looks like your contract eliminates risk from the district. So you indemnify us in case they get attorney damages or fees. It's a contingent fee, so we don't have to pay any money. As a client, is there any risk to entering this contract to the district?
No, the only risk would be the time spent, and there's no recovery. That's the only risk.
Does the state require us to use Power School?
Well, there are other districts who use other student information systems, but as you know, the attorney has already pointed out, transitioning from one student information system to another is not a simple task.
It's a monument.
Well,
By
I
any
would definitely, I can't imagine, but on the surface, I would imagine millions of students' data being breached is also not a fast process.
Can I ask clarifying question? So, I think earlier you had mentioned that this lawsuit would cover us if years down the road, someone decided to sue the district if they're, I think you had mentioned something about kids had longer time that they could come back and sue. So if we did not, so if the state of Maine's covering our bill and potentially going to reap all the benefits of getting the money out of the lawsuit, do we have any coverage down the road, or would a person sue our district versus the state?
They would not sue this. They wouldn't sue the state because, they're not a student of the state. They would sue, if anything, practically speaking, they would sue the district because you provided their data to Power School. But then if you weren't part of this case, you would then have to go to Power School, request they indemnify you. So that's pay your legal fees, pay your costs, pay any potential exposure. And if they say no, that means you have to go take Power School to court to go and assure they indemnify you. And what we're trying to do is shortcut that issue and make sure we take care of that issue now.
Okay, and and obviously if Power School were to magically go out of business in that time period, we'd have nothing to go back to.
The other information that I would just want to provide to the board is, again, just a few more details about the breach as it relates to Scarborough specifically. So in Scarborough, what was exposed was name and demographic information, email addresses, and lunch status. And no current student social security numbers were breached. We don't store those in Power School and have not done that for a number of years. Less than 90 social security numbers from 2008 and earlier were exposed. So we're really talking about historical data that actually wasn't originally in Power School. It was in a student information system that the district had. And when you morph over student information systems, you always take that historical data with you. So less than 90 social security numbers from previous students before 2008, and less than 10 social security numbers from staff. And only one of those staff members actually is still a current staff member because all of the breaches were of a historical nature.
Are there any more questions for him right now? Okay, do I have a motion to approve? It would be our participation in the Power School mass action lawsuit.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm assuming this is correct. I'm assuming that Diane, you are recommending that we go forward with this. That's why it's on the agenda.
Yes, yes. And, and again, all of you know Jen Day quite well, our technology director, and she is very involved at the state level. And she brought this to our attention and really asked us to bring it forward to you because of, again, as you've heard this evening, the risks being involved here are very minimal.
I thought I saw Jen, so I don't know if you already have the answer to this or not. Oh, so sorry. But if we were to participate, is our plan to stay with Power School or would we plan an out?
We have not made any plans at this time to move our student information system.
So I have a hard time with this situation, and I've had a hard time with this situation, and I've heard this presentation, not the lawsuit presentation, but the presentation from Jen twice now, and twice. Oh, good. Welcome, Jen. I've asked her twice about that specific question. Do we feel confident in continuing with Power School? And her answer both times was, this could happen to anybody. And that piece I am 100% on board with. This could happen to Target. This could happen to Power School. This could happen to Hannaford. Where I part ways is with the communication that has occurred afterward and the way that this has been handled from the day the breach happened and continues to be handled today. And that leaves me with zero confidence in Power School. And so when you sue, in my mind, when you sue someone, you're suing someone because you don't agree with their process, procedures, outcome, whatever. And so you're suing for reparations, for lack of a better word. And so my struggle with this is that we sue them, which I quite frankly think that from my perspective, that this is taxpayer money. So I believe we need to participate. But then why are we continuing to stay with them? That's the piece I can't wrap my mind around.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
So let me break it into a completely different thing. So let's say you hired somebody to remodel your kitchen and they did most of the work that you wanted to, but they didn't do all of it exactly how you wanted it. You wanted a double oven and range, and they put in an electric one oven and microwave combo. And you were like, what the heck is this? The contract says this, I got that. you might finish with that contractor because he's 3/4 of the way through your kitchen, but you might renegotiate parts of that contract to get some money back for, as compensation for the harm he caused you, harm in a legal term, in terms of not fulfilling his obligations under that contract, not throwing shade at contractors. But like, it's not, when you sue somebody, it's not always like one and done and you're gone forever. Sometimes in contractual, when you have a contract with somebody, that relationship will survive that lawsuit. It's really about dealing with, if somebody and you, if you make an agreement with somebody and they don't fulfill that agreement, sometimes you part ways, sometimes you don't because it makes sense to continue, but you still, you think of it as a renegotiation of like, you didn't do quite what you were supposed to do and we paid you for this job and now we're getting some of our money back because you didn't fulfill the job that you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
think
and how
about it
are
like
we
that?
confident? Yeah, that I can follow. Just how are we confident they're going to fulfill going forward if they're not doing it still to this day?
Well, it does sound like, when William was speaking that, they were gonna negotiate new terms in to cover, security stuff.
Right, but they still haven't been Power School still hasn't been communicating. Oh.
Well, I think, so there's a couple of things at play here. One, Power School has communicated not well. And, we have gone kind of back and forth with them. And when I say we, I mean pretty much the school districts on a national basis in trying to get answers. We don't have all the information and we don't have all the answers. And I think that there's, as William said, there is an investigation underway now. And I think that investigation is probably going to take quite a while, months, maybe a year. I don't know. So I think we sort of have to wait on that to see exactly what happened, when it happened, who's at fault. Did they violate the DPA? Did they violate, the terms of our contract? So things are still really up in the air right now. And yeah, we haven't gotten a lot of information from them. We need to get more information from them to really make an assessment. And two, I mean, I would echo what Ray and Diane said in that moving away from a core system like that is a very, very huge and laborious endeavor that we certainly could do. But I think the question still is it something that we should do, or is Power School viable? Now, I will say that in the past, I've seen large companies have these types of cybersecurity breaches, and oftentimes, they triple, quadruple their cybersecurity measures afterwards to ensure something like that will never happen again. So that's also sort of up in the air, is what have they done to fix the loopholes? Were there loopholes that they had to fix? Is it a process piece? Is it a technical piece? Is it an engineering piece? So those are still all open-ended questions. Shannon, I don't think at this point we have the information that we need to make that kind of decision.
I'm going to say this, and hearing about it all, it sounds great. Move forward. Sounds like the right thing to do. Stay with them. Don't stay with them. After this, I probably won't think about it again because we've got Diane to do that for us, and Jen's going to do it, and that's what we have them for. And I trust that they're going to make the right decision.
No. Shannon, you don't have to like Power School. You can hate them forever.
Yeah, it just feels like we're our job, I don't know, or you're right. Our job is to, of course, trust in Diane and Jen to do the job, and I know they will. But this has been an issue for me before this lawsuit came up. Jen and I have talked about this on 2 separate occasions because I feel like our job is also to look out for the students of Scarborough. And yes, we don't have, and the staff as well. And their personal information. Thank God we don't store their social security numbers on our system, but how many other districts aren't in that same position? And we're talking about an organization that knows this happened and has thrown up their hands and not said a word about it, or very little at least. And that just doesn't sit well with me, but.
I do also think that there's other companies in the pond, it sounds like, but we have no guarantees that if this were to happen with one of, if we go through this arduous journey of moving
Yeah, it could happen
one of them,
again.
it could happen again, and we don't have necessarily 100% guarantees that that first notice would come out day one, and we would be thrilled that every contractual obligation has been met, and this company's amazing, they've handled it well. So there's always the risk that you run moving to a new company, or the breach is worse, or they did, you know, they got even more, so I think if there was some, you know, I trust the Jen and Diane to do their job as well, but you know, I think if they had flagged this as a terrible company, that this, you know, that there was no future for Scarborough, they'd be sitting here saying that and saying, and this is the company we've selected as the you know, company that this would never have happened with. Because it could happen to anyone. And
And I would echo that by saying, you know, I've been involved in cybersecurity in some way, shape, or form for 20 plus years. And part of the issue always is when you're vetting a company, part of the issue is always going to be, are they doing what they say they're doing, right? Because they're only going to give you so much information in their policies, procedures, and terms of service about what they do on the back end for good reason. I mean, I'm very careful too at the town. I don't want to tell everybody what type of security systems we have because I don't really want that to be out in the public. So they have some protections that way too. But in some ways, you know, it's a leap of faith. You have to trust the company to be doing what they say they're doing. That's the question at hand right now, really, was, you know, was PowerSchool doing what they said that they were going to do in their data privacy agreement, in their terms of service, you know, their cybersecurity. And you know, what exactly did they indemnify themselves against? So I think, as William, you know, has said, that's still under investigation. We still have to find out, did their process match their policy? We don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way for me to move forward, because it's, I can trust you that you're going to do what you say you're going to do until you give me reason otherwise. And so this investigation, it sounds like, will tell us if they did otherwise.
Yeah, I think so. They had hired a company called CrowdStrike to go in and conduct an audit after the fact to try to figure out exactly what the root cause of the breach was. That report, I've read through it. It doesn't, and I don't know if William's still online. I don't know if he has a different opinion. That report, I don't think really said a whole lot. It didn't come to, you know, a lot of definitive conclusions, and any definitive conclusions it did come to, I think it kind of didn't paint PowerSchool in the best light. I think that they probably are now going to have to undergo, and this is what this mass action I think is going to force them to do. They need to have some really deep auditing take place within their company, so that we can see, did their policy match their process? And moving forward, as William said, that the other thing that this mass action lawsuit is going to try to guarantee is that their process does match their policy, that there's going to be, you know, basically a watchdog assigned to them who's going to oversee that and maybe go in, audit their systems, audit their perimeters, audit, you know, their access controls, all of that, to ensure that they really are doing what they're saying they're doing.
Thank you, Jen.
Jen, thank you for speaking. Sorry, this is Alyssa. Thank you for speaking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kind of flag you when, with no warning, but I do appreciate you speaking on the subject.
No, I'm glad you did. I just couldn't figure out how to unmute myself on my phone. That's great for the tech director, right?
Oh, that's funny. It's kind of ironic, right? Yeah.
All I can think about, Jen, is your giant candy bars telling us this was going to happen.
I should have brought them tonight. I'll send some.
Yeah. All right, first, second discussion. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment this evening? No. All right, can you call the vote, please?
Kelleher.
Yes.
Ms. Leon.
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Rockenstein.
Yes.
Ms. Mr. Pinion,
Yes.
Mr. Penny Huff,
Yes.
Ms. Epstein.
Yes.
Awesome. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too. Agenda item 10.3 is a middle school coach appointment. Do you have anything to add outside of what's
No,
presented?
as presented in your packet.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the middle school coach appointment as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Can we call the vote, please?
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Leon,
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Rockenstar,
Yes.
Mr. Pinion,
Yes.
Mr. Penny Huff,
Yes.
Ms. Rustina.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 11.0 is adjournment. So with no objections, we will adjourn at 10:01 PM. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.